Happy Thursday to everybody. Happy Thursday. If you are here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. I'm pretty excited about today's discussion. And many of you guys know that I feel like divesting in general, that's just such a charged topic. Anytime you talk about interracial relationships, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. I feel like it's such a charged topic. And I've shared my points and my understanding of divesting. Many of y'all know about it, you've seen it, but I've been wanting to actually talk to a divester to maybe hopefully understand what's going on and why this movement is becoming more popular among Black women. So again, if you are here, please get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion, like, comment, share. Also, for those of you who would like to show support to the show, super chats are always appreciated. You can also find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Charday. And then lastly, as you know, you guys, I try to keep things very respectful. So I know there may be some on here who agree, there may be some who disagree. You are free to share your opinion, but just please be respectful. Any moderators in the house, make sure that people are behaving in the chat. Make sure people are behaving in the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on a special guest who is divested. I want to hear a little bit about, just her background, and then we can just ask a few questions and then get right into it. So I will bring her up. Hey.
Hey.
How is it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I am good. First of all, I want to, thank you for coming on and talking with me. Many of my followers know, I've been, looking a little bit more into divesting, trying to understand it, trying to learn about what it is or what it stands for. I'll be honest and say what I've seen up to this point has been very disappointing. And there's been a lot of things that I've seen that just seem to be problematic. But I wanted to actually talk to somebody who has divested or was in it to maybe understand or help, break down like some of the things that I've been running into in my research. So I, appreciate you for coming on and at least sharing your perspective.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Wait, well, I'm sorry, you cut out a bit.
I'm sorry. I said, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh yeah, always. Okay. So I want to just get right into it. Now I just heard recently that there is a difference between divesting and swirling. I think I mentioned that to you in the email. Would you mind just explaining in your words quickly, like what you believe to be the difference between divesting and swirling? I thought they were the same thing, but evidently they're not.
Sure. Okay. Well, I can just kind of comment on what I've seen online. Apparently swirling is just kind of when you date out, but it's kind of like you have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, They may still engage with, as we refer to as Blackistan. And then the divesters are the sector who completely have cut themselves off from Blackistan and all things related to it. So that's why there's kind of, I've kind of been seeing it, not really with me, but from what I've been observing, there's kind of a civil war, where, swirlers aren't really divest, and I don't get into that too much, but that's kind of my understanding of the differences between the two.
Okay, so you're saying swirling from what you've seen or understand is maybe a little bit more they're maybe a halfway point, right? They still may be a little bit in the Black community, but they're still exploring their options. Whereas divestors, they are hardcore, 180-degree turnaround. They're like, we want nothing to do with Blackistan, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you would classify yourself as a divester, correct?
I believe so. Quite recently, I've kind of, coined myself a divester, and I've kind of shifted focus of my content to that particular lane. And I've kind of been divested my whole life. I just didn't know there was a word for it, and it basically started with my mother and my father. My father's Black. And they got married really young, and they made the decision to raise us in the country. So I'm from the country, which is why my channel is Southern Belle Spear. That's where my perspective comes from. I grew up in rural North Carolina because my mother mainly felt it would be best for them as a younger couple who did not have a lot of money to raise their kids out in the country as opposed to in the inner city, where, when you face poverty in the inner city, or when you're, poorer, there's higher crime when you're in a, lower income neighborhood. And my parents decided to kind of circumvent that by moving us out to the country.
Okay. Yeah. Fair point. Fair point. Hey, Danica. It's always a pleasure when she's here. Okay. So you mentioned that when you say divesting, basically you moved to a rural area when you were early. So you grew up more in a southern rural. Would you say that southern rural was predominantly all white? Is that what you're saying? You've always been divested, or?
No, I don't think divestment is specifically about color as it is about divesting from the culture of, Blackistan and all the negativity that tends to go on there. And, from what I'm seeing from other Black women experience creators, just the way they've kind of been traumatized in lower income communities. And I don't even like to assign race to it. Like I said, it's just lower income communities tend to be problematic for Black women, in my opinion. So yeah.
Okay. So you're saying specifically for you that divesting is not about race, that it is about divesting from the inherent problems that the Black race has. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
I feel like you perfectly summed up what I'm trying to say. That sounded beautiful. Yes.
Okay. So a couple of things then. I guess from what I've noticed from different divester channels up to this point is there actually no I think this gives me an opportunity, because there's a video that you shared on your page I think a few days ago that I listened to, and I wanted to play the audio because I think it kind of sums up perfectly perhaps what you're saying. It's about a 2-minute clip. So I'm gonna play the audio of that real quick, and then I'll get into the next question.
Okay.
Because I think that will kind of help. Let me see if I can grab it. So it's the one you posted that says divesting is no longer optional if you want to survive.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just play the audio just so that everybody can hear it, and then we can go on to there.
What exactly do y'all stand for? What are your goals and objectives?
You know what? It seems pretty bold to ask something like that, seeing as how the only thing on most straight Black men's resume is audacity. Y'all are literally the least qualified out of anybody in this country to lead somebody, but y'all always want to be in the front. But you know what? It's a special place in hell for a bitch like you that causes division amongst the entire community of people. Out of every subsection of the Black community, y'all are the least educated and the most incarcerated. Please tell me what qualifies you besides the dick between your legs to lead somebody into anything. Y'all always want people to breathe life into y'all, but at this point, it's just pure necromancy because we have no more life to give. Y'all suck the life out of every fucking thing. I mean, let's call the thing a thing. Y'all want to be white men so fucking bad. Y'all see white men at the heads of their household, and y'all can't even get a household to be the head of. Asking women questions like, what do they bring to the table when you don't even own your table, you rent it. Hell, that's even if you do rent it because it's probably in your mama name. I mean, if we could call the thing a thing, y'all are the common denominator out of every issue that we have in the Black community. Y'all are literally the root cause. Blame Black women for fatherless behavior, but then fail to realize that the father is the person that you're not blaming. Y'all blame men for being gay and say, yo, you grew up without a father. Do you see how you just pointed back to the issue? Y'all blame women for having too many kids as if they made them kids by themselves. You keep pointing back to the issue. Y'all be wanting people to hold y'all down, but at the same time, if they too good at it, then they too independent. Then you want to say, oh, yeah, like, you don't need me. They kind of don't. Maybe what y'all should start considering is that maybe our community is meant to be matriarchal. But y'all just can't accept it because it doesn't fit into what the white man has told you to believe. You're trying to do everything that the white man does, but you're just trying to do it in Black. It's literally the same shit. I mean, y'all are the most homophobic, the most misogynistic, the most transphobic, the most colorist, the most texturist, like the most xenophobic. And you are the most likely to date outside of your race. Y'all are a walking contradiction and a walking joke, and it's not funny. I always want to talk about breaking generational curses and building generational wealth, but you don't even have life insurance. Anytime you die, we got to do a damn GoFundMe. Y'all can't even die right. Y'all been trying to stick this square peg in a round hole for centuries, and it just doesn't work because you're not meant to be the head of the household. You were never meant to be. That's why the shit doesn't work.
Okay, so I listened to that. Looking at that, I mean, I find it riddled with contradictions. I'm looking at that, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, to me, there's so many different things, but you shared it. And so I wanted to get your perspective before I kind of just share my thoughts. I wanted to get your perspective on why you felt that video was an appropriate representation of divesting.
Sure. Well, I share a lot of content from TikTok that I feel like would be beneficial to my audience. And when I saw that video and I read the comments and I just saw all the infighting, I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? This guy has a point. Okay, maybe he's not 100% right, but at the end of the day, I feel like my mission and my calling online is to inspire and protect Black women. So any type of content I think may inspire somebody to go, well, maybe I do need to think about something differently. That's kind of what I share. It's not to say that I agree with every single point he made, but I feel like a lot of what he said was valid.
So are there any points in particular that you like, which ones in particular you feel like, okay, this is completely valid?
I definitely feel like the way that we are pretty much a matriarchal community, that really stuck out to me. And it also really stuck out to me and kind of where that gentleman was coming from is, I'm just so sick of all the Black woman bashing online. It really gets to me because although I don't take it to heart, I think about our younger, our little sisters and, just the younger Black women that are watching and consuming all of this and they're hating themselves. So, it really stuck out to me when he was talking about, the fatherless homes and just major issues that we know are rampant in our community.
Now, I agree with you there that there's definitely issue with single parents. I mean, that's going up across the board, all ethnicities. You see white men in the manosphere complaining about this. Just across the board, single parents is an issue, largely because of of the culture of America and things being so immoral. But it's funny that you mentioned single homes because I don't know if you've ever heard of the Monahan report.
Yes.
So if you're familiar with that and you've read through it, how in there, Monahan basically talks about how make a long story short, the structure of racism and the experience of Black people in America created what is considered a matriarchal system. And he was literally like, unless there are structural changes, there are policies put in place to help identify and address the different way that the Black family has been hurt, then this is what's going to happen because this was actually the entire point. And then he speaks to the different misandrous aggression that specifically went against Black men. And then even the different policies, around the 60s, we look at the different policy that basically basically incentivized single parent households by giving women money based upon just by claiming desertion. And these different policies and these different things that were happened to literally incentivize Black women to say that they don't have men or do not have men. And then again, the different policies, we're talking Jim Crow, all these different things. Again, this is Monahan report. This is the government. This isn't some, Joe Blow on the side or some random, Black guy on the street. This is a somebody within the government who was paid to do research and says, because of these different institutions, because of these different laws that we have passed, here is what's happening. Here's what's going on. So I guess, when I see that, while I do certainly think it is an issue and it is a problem, because we see this trend going up across the board in all ethnicities, and because we literally have different governmental documents who are speaking to the fact that is the result of many different things, including institutional racism, including different policies that incentivize women getting away from men. All these different things, I think it's dangerous to just say, oh, Black men are to blame for that, especially when 11% of single fathers within the Black community are men. 89% of them are women. It's 11%. I just did a video on this not too long ago, and if we actually look at the numbers, and so while there are certainly the Pookie and the Rays and the fathers out there who maybe are not there, or it is a child support, it's a very small percentage of Black men, and it's about a little over 50% of Black men who don't even have kids. So, but I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's an interesting perspective to have. I definitely agree with what you said. I just kind of, and again, maybe just my upbringing kind of steers me towards this mentality. I just heavily believe in personal responsibility.
Yeah,
I believe in people. We can spit out all these stats, and if you have a little black boy in 2022, we could say everything's stacked against him. But I feel like so much has to do with who he ends up being as an individual, and how's he nurtured, what's his family system like growing up, what paths does he choose as he develops. I feel like so much has to do with the decisions that we make as individuals, more than just collectively saying, all these things happen and all these things are against us. I'm just a heavy proponent of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and doing the best you can. And sometimes I feel like people, and I understand this, it's a systemic thing, and there's a lot that goes into this that we just don't have time to get into right now on this limited show. But I just feel like at the end of the day, we just have to take responsibility for ourselves in 2022, and we have to make decisions that are going to improve us as individuals, and if possible, our entire communities.
So I hear you on that. You're basically saying, okay, yeah, there's been things that have done to individually impact the community, but in order for us to do better, we individually, one by one, have to take responsibility for ourselves.
Right. And I feel like when I say that, some people go, oh, they think I'm discounting slavery, or I'm discounting, history from the beginning of time. I'm not. I don't feel like just holding on to the past and not taking advantage of all the opportunities we have today is the solution for that. That's just kind of where I come from. Yeah, we can say we were slaves. We can say this and that. Is that going to help us, or is it more beneficial for us to decide to just harness the opportunities that we have today, especially if you're American?
Right. Okay. So real quick, I want to give a special shout out to Danica for the 10 on the super chat. Always a pleasure to have you here. Also, shout out to Marco Polo with the $4.99 in the super chat. If you are here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion or share it with anyone that you think may find it interesting. We're just talking about divesting and, whether or not it's best option for Black women and all things related to that. She went a little bit into the difference between swirling and divesting, and now we are just going over a few details. So, okay, so going back to earlier point, you were saying, so you believe, there's been institutional oppression, but the way out of institutional oppression is individual responsibility.
Yes, I definitely think I believe that. I think that is the best option, because otherwise what's going to happen? Are we just going to keep harping on atrocities from the past? And, and I know it's not easy to function in the society, no matter who you are. I just really feel like there's so much that we can do as individuals to help ourselves. I can't hear you. I don't know if it's my sound or yours. I can't, let me see. Let me unplug me. Maybe it's something wonky in my sound. Can you try talking again?
No,
okay.
Okay, I think that was me. Like I said,
okay.
Sorry that I have
no, it's okay.
Cream over here. Sometimes I hit this. It's really sensitive, so if I accidentally hit it, then the audio goes.
Oh, I totally get it. Mine's the same way.
Right. Okay. So I want to go back to what you said. So okay, institutional aggression, oppression, we understand that, but it's going to require individual responsibility in order to get out of that. You also, I agree with you as far as there are certain people out there who do make excuses. You know what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, okay, let's say, for example, you're a woman and I'm not using you, but just an example, you're a woman out there and you decide to sleep with, 5 homeless men and you get pregnant. And then it's like, oh man, now I have 5 babies out of wedlock and these dudes can't pay child support. Y'all all racist. Or y'all this. And it's just like, okay, no. You just decided to sleep with 5 homeless men. That has nothing to do with the racial. So I do understand that there are moments like that where it's like sometimes people will try to hide behind a system when it's like, no, that's just your personal responsibility. Now, my question is this, it's twofold, because I think what you're saying, it implies, one, that there's still not oppression and there's still not issues going on. And then two, it implies that there aren't people within the Black community who are building. So I guess I would ask that you, as a person, just like, hey, I believe in taking individual responsibility, and I believe in those, people trying to do better. Are you one that personally does try to work with, or does try to, support people in the community, maybe Black men in the community in particular, who are building, who are doing things to try to improve things overall? What's your position on that?
Support as in, you mean like the good Black men that are out here?
It could be like, okay, community organizations. Okay, for example, I've heard the common trope, okay, well, Black men don't build, which is like, obviously we know that's a lie, because they built this nation. There's things that they've built in the past, things they're building today. The fact that we're having this conversation online is because of Black men. Black men is responsible for the 2G cell phone. I mean, there's so many different things that Black men have done that have actually helped modern society move forward. So we hear these kind of ideas, I think, sometimes that just they feed into self-hatred, I think, against sometimes ourselves as Black women and against our sons and our uncles, and they don't really tell the full truth. And I'm saying sometimes I think it can be so. It's so quick sometimes to start to focus on the negative and start to focus on the false, and then we overlook the good that is due, and we actually don't partner with those who are building. Again, I'm thinking of community organizers, people out there who are trying to do grassroots. You know what I mean? Maybe working in inner cities and saying, okay, let's try to. The reality is, even if we want to take individual responsibility, things like schools are funded by largely funded by taxes. And the taxes, that all has to do with, okay, the property value. We know there is redlining. We know there are certain things that basically to this day require that certain areas are going to be poor, certain areas are going to be rich. So of course it's going to have an impact in the schools. So now we, if we go back and we're like, okay, we know this area is poor. They're not getting money into this school because of racism. Now we decide we want to do better. So I'm saying, like, organizations that are doing that are on the ground doing that. I've interviewed a few of those different men who are out there trying to build alliances, maybe even outside of this, build alliances, maybe back to Africa. Different things that are going to help create a system where economically we are doing better. So that's my question: is like, okay, do you see that as a part of divesting or moving to a better strategy or to a better situation? Do you see that as being a part of it, working with those who actually are trying to invest in the Black community? Does that make sense?
It does. And I can only speak for myself and my version of I don't want to be on here speaking for every divester, because it's not my movement and there's so many nuances within it. I will just say, in regards to all of that, my stance is that just because of so many things that have happened, I just don't feel like the solution is really going into the community anymore. Just because of all the years, just me personally, I'm 33 years old. Okay. I've seen lower income communities where you pour money, there's all these initiatives, and I'm in my hometown. I've been here my whole life, and it has not helped those people. So I understand the intention, but I feel like that's where we have got to a point where the divestment movement has started. We've kind of come to realize that trying to help and pour into the community is not what we need to be doing. We need to instead move out of the community, because it seems like people go back to the community. They're victimized because they're successful, and just because of the crime and the drama and the way I personally have just watched how nothing anybody does to these communities helps. It's like it's a deep embedded culture of kind of all the things you were saying, the low income, the schools and all that. It's just like you try to help these communities. And I guess a lot of us divestors have gotten to the point where we just kind of give up. And it's like, what, let's instead encourage Black women to, definitely focus on school, go to college, delay pregnancy, And when you do choose to get married, choose the best man for the job, whether he's black, white, whatever. And I think, everything you're talking about has kind of led to divestment. We've kind of seen that nothing you do in particular areas improves them. And why keep trying? So I guess, if you kind of want to say, maybe we have given up on the community.
Okay. So it's okay. So that makes it. So you're saying basically, divestors are just like, I give up. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't think there's anything positive that would come from it. So I'm completely going to move away. I'm done. Now, my question is twofold, because one, if you're to divest into a community that is oppressing you, right? How do you handle that? Because there's such, we've seen this. There's been multiple accounts of this where, there may be African-American woman and she divests or ends up with a guy who ends up being a racist. I actually had a friend of mine who she's now divorced, but she married a white guy, and he ended up being just racist. Like, he was a part of very, very questionable gangs, and that created a whole bunch of different tension. And now she has biracial children, and she's having to navigate that. But so it's like, I get it. Like, okay, if you want to divest from here, but now if you're not integrating into a culture that, even if that person isn't racist, there's certainly going to be potentially racism or discrimination or bigotry within that culture you're divesting to. How do you manage that?
Let's see. In my experience, the culture I grew up in was very diverse. And being in the South, I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. I just have not run into any issues of that nature. So maybe I'm not the best person to comment on it. I definitely know it exists. I personally do not feel oppressed. I grew up in a town with 300 people, rural North Carolina. I have never felt oppressed, but that's just my unique experience. And I know, other people are going to have different experiences.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're saying, as a girl who grew up in a rural area, you grew up in a diverse area, you've never felt oppressed. You've never experienced what can be considered discrimination or racism. So you can't identify with that issue at all. Just want to make sure I'm understanding your point.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. If you are on here, please get those likes up. Get those likes up, y'all. We're talking about divesting. And I'm so grateful to have my lovely special guest here. It's Southern Bellsphere, right? I want to make sure I got
yes.
it. Yeah, Southern Bellsphere. So she's just explaining her experience with divesting, the different reasons that she's done so, things of that manner. So okay. So a question. So I know you had mentioned, divestors essentially, they're just like, I've given up on the Black community. I'm just like, I want to move on and just go where I personally am going to find peace and happiness. With that, why is the interracial marriage rate so low for Black women?
I'm not sure. I can't speak to that personally. Just from my perspective, I know for me, like I said, I'm 33. I did not want to get married for the longest because I left my small town. I went to college in the city, and I was just very much caught up in feminism in college, and just, we don't need men. I'm never getting married. So I guess just I'm assuming that probably happened to a lot of women. You're told, at least I was, because I went to a public high school. It's just dug into your head. You have to go to college, and you don't need men. So if that was told to me from, high school, I'm thinking maybe it kind of went across the board. And I think not even just, in a rate, people just don't want to get married anymore. Now, I've changed my stance since, but I definitely feel like that was a big message when I was in high school and college. And I'm thinking that has spilled over to other people as well.
So you're thinking, so you're saying Black women there's not higher interracial rates, perhaps because they're so focused on school and education that they decide to put that off.
I think that may be a viable hypothesis, because we are kind of conditioned and raised to be very independent.
We are. No,
Yeah.
we are, and I think, I mean, that goes, that goes along with feminism period. Feminism period.
You can check the door.
Sorry about that. Got introduction.
Okay.
Hey, looks like I got some super chats in there. Shout out to Hakeem. I see. Here to show support as always. I trust your intentions are good, although this topic ... I see indeed. I say you are a great interviewer, Sade. Much appreciated. Like I said, I think it's important to cover up topics that are actually impacting Black women, because it's like, whether I agree or disagree or understand or don't understand, it's like, if it's something that they're going through, I think at the very least, I should seek to understand why and whether or not it's helpful. Now here's another thing, and you may or may not, but I'm more just curious your thoughts on this, because of the Divester channels that I've seen and the Divester adjacent channels that I've seen, if a person wants to say, I want nothing to do with Blackistan, I'm done. I really want to learn to integrate into a situation that's better, that may be, going after learning how to integrate into other cultures. Okay, if that is the case, why are the majority of the Divester channels that I've seen directed at promoting Black male misandry and or talking about different bad things that dusties, beta males, aka Black men, have done? Because to me, I'm like, if you really want to divest, the emphasis would be, hey, here's maybe how to be more integrated into this culture. Here's, let's say you want to divest and you're interested in a white man. You want to learn, okay, let's learn a little bit more about European culture. What are European men generally into? What's their standard of beauty? You know what I mean? Like, you want to learn more about that culture and that be the focus. The primary divester channels, again, I've seen they've just been a place to just breed Black male hatred. And to me, that has been, I think, my primary against divesting, or the ones that promote to be big divester channels, is that it tends to be under the umbrella of divesting, but it's literally just about promoting hatred to men. And I'm just like, and a lot of it to me is propaganda. It's not based upon actual evidence. So what do you think about that? I'm not sure if you divesters that you follow, but what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Let's see, my thoughts. I definitely get what you're saying. I think some are very extreme. I would probably say that, like most things, there's a spectrum. There's and there's always extremists in any movement, I feel. However, I feel like sometimes that extremism is necessary to wake people up. So, while it's not always my particular cup of tea or way of wanting to learn about something, I do feel like it wakes people up, and, first you get mad, there's the, cognitive dissonance, and you're like, nah, no. And then, eventually they start to listen. So I definitely feel like every divestment channel has its place on YouTube. And I think that we reach different people because the approaches are different. Maybe somebody doesn't want to hear the extremist stuff, like the direct Black male bashing, but maybe they do kind of want to listen to me. I don't per se bash dusties anymore. I did for a while. I'm not gonna lie, I did. But I felt like I got to a point where I was like, this doesn't feel good. I don't want to talk about them. I want to forget I want to divest, right? So, I focus my content more on just the good and what I'm trying to promote and the help I'm trying to do. But I guess I'll just say everybody has their place. And as long as we reach Black women and they make more positive decisions with their lives, I don't like to consume a lot of really negative stuff, but I think it can be a helpful way for some people to learn.
Okay. So you're saying women who take the more extremist approach and specifically take on maybe a anti-male or a misandrist approach, they're relevant and they're necessary if that's going to help reach Black women make better decisions. I just want to make sure I'm understanding your point.
Correct. I believe that. Yes. It, as long as it helps Black women, I'm kind of on board for it,
Okay. So, so then somebody, for example, like, now she doesn't claim to be a divester. No, there's B, but she's certainly divester adjacent. Somebody like perhaps a Cynthia G, who says, okay, abort all Black male babies because they end up being dusties, or divester zealot who encourages women to date whoever, even if even if they are, like, for example, connected with white supremacist groups like the KKK. She mentioned that. So you're saying in a situation like that, although it's very aggressive, if a Black woman listens to that and ends up making better decisions, then you're like, you don't see a problem with that. Just want to make sure I understand.
I don't really, I may not agree with everything every single one of those channels says, but I think the overall intention for every Black woman that's kind of in this space is that we want to help another Black woman. So if that's accomplished through, more extreme means, then I think so be it. I think, I think it's worth it, in my opinion.
Okay. So then with that, because you mentioned earlier that one of the things that you don't like is seeing there being misogyny. So if it's okay for us as women to promote misandrous ideas to make us do better, then why wouldn't it be okay for Black men to promote misogyny if that means they're going to make better decisions?
I kind of feel like they already do. I mean, I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, but I feel like that's already going on.
Okay. So, so then, I guess just, again, this is you personally, you're saying,
yes,
promoting misandry is okay, promoting misogyny is okay, as long as that person individually is able to make better decisions.
I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying I understand the approach. I understand the approach. I understand the shock factor. And I just feel like if it's going to wake Black women up and they're going to decide, okay, I'm not going to get pregnant in high school, I'm going to go to college, or I'm going to join the military. I feel like if they had to see something extreme to completely change the direction of their lives, I'm saying, the ends make the means. I'm not saying I agree with their approaches or misogyny or misandry or anything, but maybe some people need something extreme to really jar them. It's kind of like you have Oprah and then you have Tony Robbins, who cusses every other word. Everybody's not going to listen to a Tony Robbins, and everybody's not going to listen to an Oprah. But I feel like there's an audience for each, and I feel like they're helpful to people in their own way.
Okay. If you were on here, please get those likes up. Special shout out to CJN. I see SYSBM guys don't have to advocate for the murders of Black female infants or Black women in order to date who we date. I would like to know about the fascination of these divesters with Black misandry. Yeah, I did speak to that, and I said that's my personal what I don't like about it and what I disagree, because I will say, in order for you to do that as a Black woman who has a Black father and a Black mother, and whoever I date and marry, that kid is going to be considered, if I have a son, he's going to be considered a Black man. Like, it doesn't matter. He's going to be considered a Black man. So it's like, how can I now say, okay, I hate you who created me, but not hate myself? I guess I don't see how that ideology would not lead to, self-hatred. Now, I do understand. I'm not saying that you have to you need to like overlook things, or you need to just say, oh, there's no problem. It's like, no, we should address problems and we should be constructive. But I guess for me, I see some of those ideologies as promoting self-hatred, and then essentially the destruction of Black people. Because I'm like, if I'm telling myself I don't want to, people who look like me, men who look like me are bad, I'm going to try to avoid that, and I'm going to teach my children to do the same thing. And then over time, it's like, I no longer exist. So I guess, for me, that's where I'm like, I see on both sides. I don't like seeing men promote hatred towards women, personally in my channel. And so I try to be very balanced when it comes to that. But I would say that's probably one of the things for me that I'm like, I have a hard time seeing how promoting hatred on any level could ever lead to anything good or constructive.
Right. And I understand that. And that's how I felt for a long time. I think what finally kind of shifted me is I just kind of, first of all, quarantine. I spent a lot, and that's kind of how I got immersed into this particular part of the internet.
Okay.
And when I began to see the suffering that Black women were going through, that's when I'm like, at any cost, we have to help. Like, we have to help them. We have to stop this. We have to, and it's hard for me because I do have a different Black woman experience, but just from what I see and what people tell me, it just breaks my heart, and I want so much better. So
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're saying, okay, I just want to make sure I understand. You said you grew up in an area. You sound like you had a pretty good experience as a Black woman. So you didn't really have to deal with issues, racism, discrimination. Your parents moved you to an area where you could grow up and have a pretty good childhood. Not to say it was perfect, but it was a pretty good childhood, free of certain traumas that you've heard.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's interesting because the place I'm from, my family has been here for generations, and my grandmother, when she was younger, was actually chased by the KKK. Like I'm in the South. Yeah, we have deep roots. And by the time things got to, my mom and her sister's generation, like our community was basically anti-racist. And as a child, we were just taught to love each other. And we basically grew up in a colorblind society. So I do have some blind spots to some things because I don't tend to see color because of the dark history of the town I grew up in. Our parents were so anti-racist that, we were raised colorblind pretty much. We didn't have, racism and things like that going on. It was very much frowned upon due to the history of our town.
Oh, okay. So you're saying you grew up in a colorblind environment. Now you do recognize though that there are still areas and there are still systems in place that are very much color focused.
Yes, I do.
Now, okay. So, and also what you said, again, just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you had a good experience, but what inspires you to go down this road of divesting was seeing and hearing the experiences of other women, specifically on social media, since this all happened around quarantine, right?
Yes.
Okay, but in your personal life, it's not like a ton of women who are it's just something that you've seen. Again, I just want to make sure.
Yes, I mean, I have some distant cousins, and like I'll learn of their situations and I'm kind of like, what the heck, but overall, most of the experiences are from me hearing other people's stories.
So you decided to divest primarily because of other people's stories.
That, and just like I said, I kept seeing so many horrific stories about what was going on in, lower income inner city communities. I would have women send me emails and just tell me about horrific. And, for the longest, I kind of chalked it up to, like you would see stuff on TV like Jerry Springer or Maury. And it's like, oh, that's just TV. That's just, that's not really happening. And I lived most of I'd say probably a good portion of my life thinking that and because we were taught not to stereotype people. And we were taught that people were individuals. So I wasn't going through my life thinking, oh, all these people are this or that. So, it definitely really woke me up to see and hear other people's stories. And I felt so bad, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but if I can just kind of, encourage. And I guess I exist online to show Black women that outside of all of the, Blackistan drama, you can move out. Like there's happiness and there's communities of people that, like my community is so loving. And I want to share like my happiness and my experience with everybody. Maybe that's, not something I should aspire to do, but, I've had a good experience. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized it wasn't like that for every Black woman. And it really got to me.
So in order for a person to have a good experience, they need to, as a Black woman, they need to get away from the Black culture.
Again, I don't think it's about race as much as it's about the area and, is it high crime, low crime? Is it lots of poverty? I think it has so much more to do with culture than just saying Black people. And this is just me talking. Maybe that's not what every divester, maybe, a lot of divestors are saying what you said verbatim, like, Black people, Black people, Black people. In my opinion, I feel like it's more about a specific culture you're trying to divest from. Because if you go to the hood, there's not just Black people in the hood. There's not just Black people in Blackistan. And I feel like to demonize just Black people, it's like, no. I grew up in the country and there's some crazy people of all races. And maybe that again goes back to, my colorblind upbringing where I was taught to look at people as individuals. But I don't feel like it's about color as much as it's about culture and what's going on in the particular area you're in. If it's high crime and your kids can't go outside and play and you have to be afraid to leave the house at night, then I feel like the best course of action is to commit all your time, energy, and resources to moving out of that place, you know?
Okay. So you're saying, you grew up in a colorblind area, right? Where you had a lot of good things happening. You had a lot of good experiences, et cetera, et cetera. But then you found out that, hey, there are people out there who don't have experiences. There are Black women out there who don't have experiences. So I guess if it's not about race, then why would your focus be Black women? If it's not a race thing, and why are terms like Blackistan, which are very racially charged, used when referring to divesting? And I don't really hear white women, talking about divesting. I don't really hear Chinese. So it seems to be something that is specifically, primarily by Black women, referring to Black or racial things. But I guess it's not about race. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, if it's not about race, then why focus on just Black women, if that makes sense.
Right. For me personally, I just feel like, because I'm Black, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying just women. You need to tailor it. Like, who am I seeing these stories from the most? Who is being impacted? So that's why I choose to target Black women. I am a Black woman, and those are the women that I've seen all these crazy stories from, and who I see that desperately need help. I have some white people that follow my channel and comment and support me, but and they understand, the sole focus is Black women, and they're supportive. And so I guess it's just because I'm Black. I don't feel like I could speak on any other race's experience. I'm a Black woman in the South. I'm obviously Black,
So when you say colorblind, then what do you refer to? When you say colorblind, because you say that you're Black and obviously Black woman, then what does that mean if you're saying you grew up colorblind, if that makes sense?
I'm saying that race was not a focus when I was growing up. You were told to look at people as individuals. I remember my mom quoting Dr. King from as little as I can remember. You judge people by character. You don't judge people by religion, race, anything else. Like, it's a person's character. There's good and bad in any type of way you can classify a human being. You just have to get to know somebody as an individual and not what they look like, or, any type of label we can put on them. People are who they are.
Okay, so you're saying colorblind for you is judging a person by character. Now, would that apply to communities?
That's kind of a difficult question. I would say, I don't think it's fair to classify an entire community per se, but again, I feel like it comes on an individual basis, because like, if you were to ask me here in my community, I feel like I would be qualified to judge my community and say, hey, I've been here 33 years. I'm a pretty good judge of what goes on in this community, but I wouldn't be able to speak for other communities. You get what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Okay. If you're on here, I see some new people in here. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Also, special shout out to Renzo Jones. I see clearly a psychological problem going here. It's very obvious here from Heads Nation. Respectfully, let her divest. All right.
Yeah, my whole problem is that I'm from the South. That's my whole problem.
Is that you from the South? Well, I do appreciate the support. Like I said, y'all be respectful.
It's cool. I know I and that's why my channel is called Southern Belle Spear. I know I kind of live in my own bubble because people have drugged me over and over. And it's like, I can only speak from the body I'm in and the life I've lived. And that's why I'm here, just to share my perspective.
I guess to me, okay, so, and this will be another question. So in your different dating experiences, have you dated all across the board? Have you dated all different ethnicities, or you generally like a primarily ethnicity? Like, what would you say? Do you feel like you'd say you'd have a pretty positive dating history?
I would say so. I've never closed myself off to a particular race because I was raised to see character in individuals. So I've always been open. You know, I've never had the idea that I just had to date Black men or, you know, brown or anything.
Okay. Have you dated Black men before? Have you primarily been interested in other races?
I've dated lots of different races. Like I've dated Black men. I've probably dated a man from every race over the course of my life. Yeah.
Now, do they have a specific socioeconomic background or status, or were they kind of all across the board?
I mean, if we were going to go as far back as high school, I mean, you know, my high school boyfriend, I would say he was maybe middle class. Mm-hmm. After high school, I would say that most of my partners were, I mean, I guess it just depends on what you would consider high income or not, you know?
Okay.
I'm not sure what, you know, I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, but, you know, typically the men I date earn more than me.
Okay. Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's just the way that the laws of nature work, if you will, to this day. I mean, if I was a date, I mean, I'm married, but if I was to date a guy next door, he'd probably make more than me, just because men all across the board, across all ethnicities, are still making more money than women. That's partially why Black feminism is a thing. So I mean, you've said some really interesting things. Now, I'm not sure, and I'm wondering if this kind of fits into your experience you said earlier, because, you know, you mentioned quarantine is the thing that really kind of pushed you into exploring and saying, you know what, I identify as I divester, right? And you, like you said, you saw different stories from Black women who were promoting different bad experiences they had, specifically within Blackistan. Now, are you aware of the algorithm and how it works and how it will promote certain content and continue to promote certain content if you engage with it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that it's possible that maybe because of what you're engaging with and watching, that what you saw was maybe an inflation, an overrepresentation of what's actually going on in your life, or what's actually happening all around? Because you mentioned your experience, you've had great situations with all races. So in your personal life, there would never be a reason for you to say, I need to divest from Blackistan, or to even be affiliated with people who would promote Misandry, right? Or misogyny, because your experience. So again, I'm curious as to why you would be, you know, want to align with something that would, you know, promote something that's not necessarily your experience, or if it's just really out of curiosity, or maybe fascination or just interest.
I would say it's a, let me think if I want to answer this. I would just say it's a way to market my content to the desired people. I feel like the people who would like to see my content are going to be looking for divestment, interested in divestment, you know. And I mean, even though, you know, I have not had traumatic experiences, I guess you could, you know, compared to what I've heard, I guess I still feel like my experience is important to share, you know, and if I can do that by aligning with a community that I feel like represents what I've lived my whole life, whether I knew it or not. You know, my mama was divested. My mama moved us away from, you know, Blackistan, as it's called online. So
how would you define Blackistan again? You would say all the problems are inherent to the Black community?
I would say Blackistan, from the way I use it and I understand it, it's just an internet term for all the negative stereotypical things that are typically attributed to lower income areas. And I feel like people coined it Blackistan because, you know, people want to say that it's mainly Black people. But again, I don't feel that way, but it's a popularized term. And when you say it, people kind of get what you're meaning. So that's why I use the term, and I do use it in my content to market things.
Okay. So yeah. So you in particular are not trying to use it in any way to clarify race or to call out race, although you do understand that it is a racially charged term, because, you know, as a Black woman walking around you know, like there's no way to get around it. You're black. People see you as black. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you don't plan. So going back to that, you know, that video that was shared early with the gentleman, because he was going specifically against. That was specifically against a black man. And so would you say that, again, divesters, divesting, divestment? Because I think this is where to me it sounds so nuanced, and that's where it gets a little bit unclear. Because like I said, anytime I've seen Divesting channel, it's Divested Brad, which most people I know are like, okay, date or marry whoever, but then that's the overarching umbrella. But then it's like, why do we have to spend majority of the time talking negatively about other people? And then maybe I'll ask you, as a divester, what is the kind of content that you do want to promote? Because if you're saying you didn't grow up with a lot of trauma, but you want to attract those who have been traumatized so that you can share some of the goodness, what is that goodness that you're sharing? And are you going to be a channel that's like, hey, no, we're not going to negatively talk about black men. We're not going to negatively talk about black women. We're going to do positive. Like, is that the strategy you want to take? Or are you okay, again, taking on different misogynist or misandrous talking points if you think that is going to reach women?
Well, that's not really my style of marketing to people. Like, you know, I don't want to be negative. From here, my main thing is to share my experience, because I realized it maybe about 2 weeks ago. I'm like, you know, I could start just talking about my experience and maybe helping people have better experiences in life. You know, I really want to help people. And a lot of times I'll see in comment sections where people will talk about how, you know, black women can't do this, black women can't do that. You know, nobody wants black women. And I'm just like, the things you guys are saying are not true. And I just want to encourage my own women. And if I can do that by sharing my life and saying, hey, you know, if you do want to assimilate into a higher class, you know, I can kind of teach you how to have etiquette. I can teach you how to carry yourself in different cultures, you know, because it's kind of a learning curve depending on where somebody is starting. And I guess that's kind of the direction I'm taking my content. I want to share my experiences, and I want to help women get out of poverty. You know, I want to help them have better lives.
Okay. So you are like, you want to do somewhat of a hypergamy, like, hey, here's how to get out of this class and to go into this class. That's really going to be a focus of what you're doing and what you're about. And I've seen that that's pretty consistent with some other divester channels that I've seen, is really wanting to promote hypergamy and doing better. I want to make sure I understand.
Yes, just and sharing my experience with it. I think that's kind of just what I'm trying to do. You know, if I can just help somebody see life differently and make a different path, that's all I really want. And that's the whole reason I exist on social media.
Now, does it matter to you as far as black women continuing to exist? Because we know a part of that is it requires the creation of black women, which is a black man and black woman coming together. Is that an important component of what you wanted to see, is promoting, okay, healthy black love, right? We know that there's the poopies and the Marys out there, but there's 54% of black men who are single and childless, who are very much working in middle class, and, you know, in certain positions. So is a part of your channel about, you know, promoting that and saying, I also want to encourage women to marry healthy black men within the community also? Or is it just more like, forget about Blackistan, try to primarily integrate into a non-black but a higher income society?
Honestly, I think that depends on an individual's goals and what they want for their particular life. I will just say that I feel like hypergamy is kind of seen as a bad thing or seen as gold digging. But the thing about it is hypergamy is just saying, get somebody on your level or higher. You know, it's not about going out here and just kind of finding the richest man or whoever. So I would just say that kind of depends on people's individual goals.
So then so for you, how should a woman define on her level? What are the different things that she should look at to define that?
I feel like it would depend again on somebody's particular goals, but if you are kind of, what my focus is dating to get married, I feel like you should definitely be aware of his finances and your finances. If you pay your bills on time, you have good credit, make sure you find somebody on that same level or higher, because so often what I've seen is that women just get drugged down by attaching themselves to men that, are unmotivated. Maybe they don't work, whatever. And, to each her own, but for the women that don't want to kind of fall into that cycle, I just want to be here to kind of show them different ways of being.
Okay, so you're saying hypergamy all depends upon the woman. Divesting all depends upon the woman. There's not really a clear definition for either, as it varies, the goals varies, and the actual, I guess, qualifications of that vary by case.
I guess you could say that, because at this point I feel like, hypergamy is clearly defined. You date and marry somebody on, at your income level or higher.
Yeah,
but as far as divestment, I feel like it's an umbrella term. I mean, nobody owns it. We don't have a leader. We don't have, as with any type of sect on YouTube, it's a word and people within that word, like if you had asked me what divestment was, I would say it's divesting from anything that doesn't serve you, regardless of what color it is, regardless of what zip code it's in. If a situation does not serve you, get away from it. If you were just to ask me straight out, what's divestment? I would say it's getting away from anything that does not serve you or could harm you. If you were to get specific with divestment on YouTube, and if you ask every divester on YouTube, we're all probably going to give you kind of a different answer. But I feel like the overall goal and the root of the word is, you divest from anything that does not serve you, whether you're a Black woman, a Black man, green, purple, whatever. If a community is not the best option for you, if a particular relationship isn't, get away from it. Don't hold on to things that don't serve you and don't improve your life.
I don't think anyone disagrees with that. With that explanation of it. I think where there's, sometimes pushback is the way that that's actually translated online, right?
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that being used to promote propaganda, to promote in some ways Black male misandry, or just different ideas about Black culture in general or Black people in general that can really promote self-hatred. And like I said, for me, that's one of the main things that I was like, oh, I don't like this and I don't understand this. And maybe if I talk to somebody, they can help me understand am I missing something? Am I misgeneralizing something? Because at the end of the day, I would like to see Black women and Black men, of course you want to see them doing better, or I want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Now, I guess, because you mentioned that hypergamy really, if we look at its textbook definition, it's essentially marrying into another class, right? Mm-hmm. So would you mind maybe sharing a little bit your story of how you were able to successfully do that?
I guess I could. It's hard for me to know how to exactly explain it because it was innate in my culture. But definitely throughout the years, anyone I've dated, I've just made sure they had a career. And, my thing was always, if I ever had a child, I wanted to stay at home with my child for at least 5 years. Like I wanted to see my child through kindergarten. So, like my version of hypergamy is to find somebody who's okay with that, who, if we have a child, I'm going to stay at home with my child until they go to kindergarten. So, I guess it's just something that's very nuanced also.
Okay. So I know you would mention that you had mentioned that like your family decided to move to rural areas so you could have pretty much a nice, safe environment. Now I saw one of your videos. It was probably a joke. You were probably joking a little bit, but you were talking about how You know, this is I think it was on your Instagram. You're like, okay, this is why I'm single, and it's because I'm a little bit of crazy. Right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So how are you able to take that crazy and still, you know, level up into a relationship, or I'm assuming marriage, that that works for you, that works for the man that you're with?
Right. And that was totally a joke. It was hilarious though, because to put it in the context, a man was coming home and his wife had a cow in the living room. And I thought that video was hilarious. And I was like, you know, this seems like something I would do, definitely, you know, being in rural North Carolina. But it's just kind of something it's something I've never really had to think about. Like when I turned 18, you know, my first boyfriend was a real estate investor. And so I guess he kind of framed all my subsequent relationships, because you know, he was somebody who was successful and I didn't have to worry about anything. So, you know, my experience with hypergamy, you know, my mother, she was a stay-at-home mother. My father was the sole provider. So it's just kind of something that, you know, it's not something I've decided on one day. It's just kind of, I guess, a cultural and generational thing for me.
Okay. So you're saying that post where you were joking about, like, yeah, I'm single because I got a little bit of crazy, but I'm loving, but I got a little bit of crazy, and you're making reference to that particular video where somebody came home and there was a cow.
Right. It was a TikTok duet. Yes.
Yeah, it was a TikTok duet. But you're like that, you know, being hypergamous for you has been very natural.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So now your current husband, is he Black? Is he white? Or?
I am currently single and dating.
Oh, okay. Single and dating. Okay.
Yes. My ex, he was Caucasian. My son is biracial. Yes.
So you want to help women be more successful in dating. And then eventually that's like, well, part of the hypergamy.
I believe so, but more, I really want to protect women from entering relationships that will take them so long to recover from, you know, because I've seen, and kind of what really prompted my increase in creating content was me coming in contact with one of my friends from high school, and how she went through so much with like her boyfriend. And I just kind of internalized that. And I think about it all the time. And I'm like, how can I help women avoid just really traumatic relationships? You know, is there anything we can kind of do to say, you know, let's look out for these red flags in men, and let's see what, you know, if we can do everything we can to vet a guy and make sure he's a good guy. You know, I'm just really passionate about, I guess, preventing trauma. I don't want people to be traumatized, specifically Black women, because I am a Black woman, and seeing the stories just led me down a path of wanting so bad to help other Black women.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. So you are, like you said, a Black woman that was born, or you were raised colorblind, right? Raised to not see race. But you want to help Black women divest from Blackistan, right? Or to divest from the drama within the Black community. Although it's not about race, it's about them finding better options for themselves.
Well, it's more so, I mean, all of that is very like nuanced and hard to comment on in a general specific way. But I'll just say in general, I want to inspire them and show them that you have options. You know, you're not stuck. You're not your mom. You're not your grandma. You know, there are options outside of what you're doing, because I know there's so many young Black girls, you know, specifically some that have written into me. They don't have any type of way of really knowing how, like, they know they don't want to stay in the hood, but it seems like the road to getting there is so far. So, you know, I really like to help.
Okay. So you are familiar with I think either it's the CDC, not the CDC. I'd have to go and find the exact report. I may link it to this, but basically, it was a report recently that was released and it looked at the different Western countries, or the different first world countries, if you will. And the U.S. ranked last as far as upward mobility, right? Which is a person to actually jump from class to class. It ranked like last, unfortunately, for various reasons. So. Are you, I guess, aware that while hypergamy can happen, it is rare, right? Just based upon, some of the different data. And I guess maybe being able to communicate that with some of the people that you want to help. That, hey, this can potentially happen, but it's hard to do so in this country. How would you handle that? Or how would you, manage that expectation to those who, because not everyone's going to be able to successfully do that. It just is what it is. So how would you manage those expectations of very few are actually able to do this and still, try to find ways to help?
Well, this is where I believe maybe me and my content being localized to where I'm from kind of comes into play, because here it's innate in our culture, and men provide and women stay at home, and it's not like, oh, you have to stay at home, but there's always the option, and men really take pride in being providers. So, just speaking from my personal experience and the type of content I make and what I see other people do, hypergamy, it's not always like people hear hypergamy and they tend to think, oh, it means you have to marry a millionaire. It's like, no, people can live around here for around $65,000 a year. You can support a family around here. But again, I'm in a small rural area. So, just to answer that from my local perspective is really all I can do. It happens around here frequently, and it's in our culture.
Okay. So you want to focus on it's more of a local. Now, the stories that you were getting, were they local? Were these local women who were coming and talking to you and saying, hey, or was it outside of your local area? Because I know you would mention that your area is good and you don't really have a lot of these issues that you were seeing around. So I guess do you understand my question? Like, where the issues that you were seeing, people emailing you mentioned all these different stories, were they coming from women locally, or were they coming from outside of that?
Well, I never really asked anybody where they were from, so I guess I can't give an honest answer to that. I will say that me and people in my community, we do volunteer for local shelters. So I also am able to kind of talk to people who have been through things locally. But it really just depends. I can kind of only answer from my perspective and my experience.
Okay, so yeah, so you said you're not totally aware where some of these things came from. You can only speak from your own perspective. Now, I know you mentioned that you have come from a lovely town. It's really colorblind, a lot of loving people, a lot of community. You didn't see a lot of the stuff, and people that probably closely didn't see a lot of this stuff that you're referring to.
Not in my immediate circle, no, but definitely friends and extended family. I've heard some stories. But what really got to me, again, I think quarantine, just me being at home like a lot of us were and spending a lot more time on the internet. Just everything I saw and everything I heard was just so horrible. And it really affected me. And I wanted to do something to help, any amount of people that I could, specifically Black women, because I feel like that's one experience that, although mine may not be what yours is or anybody else listening, it's my personal experience. And I just really felt led to share that if it was going to help somebody,
Right. Okay. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. Shout out to, is that practitioner? Well, first of all, I see Balo Nice Shay really schooling her FBI. FBI, I don't know. silly. FBI wins. Okay, I see practitioner here with the $9.99. Say, I'm loving this channel and your discussions, progressive and statistically backed. Thank you, all of you. Again, if you're here, get those likes up and tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're talking about divesting. We've had a really interesting conversation with a Southern Belle Sphere, who is a divester and also a hypergamy channel, right? I could say that.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's a divester and hypergamy channel, and she's just explaining, what it means to her, the different ways that she's hoping to impact women online. So, I will say it's really interesting hearing your story, because I don't think you're the first person that I know that says, hey, I've decided to divest and be hypergamous, not really because of my own experience, but because of what I've seen other people discuss online. That's new to me. Now, I guess my question, you made reference that men in your community, where your rural town where you're at, men really step up to the plate, are willing to help pay, are willing to help sustain. So I guess, as you know, there's a lot of single mothers. That's pretty common, not only in this culture, but especially in the Black community. So in your area, how are single mothers able to kind of stay at home and take care of their kids, even without like a husband? I'm just kind of more curious, because I know you said that's kind of the setup that you have out there. Or is
Yes.
it like a community thing?
Well, I can only speak for myself personally. I've just always said that if I had a child, I would be at home the first 5 years. And my son's father and I, we agree that that's the best place for him, is at home with me, as long as I stay, as long as I decide I want to stay at home. So he financially supports us, because we agree that that's what's in the best interest of our child.
Okay, that's great. So you guys, I know you mentioned that you're single, so you guys aren't together at the moment, but
Correct.
Helping you fulfill that, that desire that you had to stay at home.
Yes.
For the first 5 years with the kid. Okay. Again, those of you who are on, please get those likes up. Now, I think I have just a few more questions, and then I will leave you be. This has been a very interesting conversation. Like I said, I've been wanting to hear somebody's perspective. No, I know. Again, you certainly don't speak for everyone. You don't speak to all divestors.
Yes.
You've given me a good understanding as to what's going on, and maybe the different things that may be pushing women toward this movement, because like I said, it is a very commonplace, or a common movement. Now, are you aware, because again, a lot of the things that, as you mentioned, inspired you to make this jump was what you saw, right? Now, are you aware that I think it's about six or seven major companies own about 90% of the media? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think that it's possible that they might, in certain instances, ever push propaganda or ever push certain messages that may not be reflective of what's going on across the entire network?
Oh,
or do you
yes,
think
ma'am.
that what you see online? Mm-hmm.
I don't even watch TV, like most mainstream media, quote TV. Yeah, I'm aware. It's no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, it's all, just you can't trust what you see on TV,
Okay, so you don't trust what you see on TV, but you do trust what you may see online, maybe YouTube, Instagram, social media. You find that more trustworthy, as that definitely influenced this decision that you decided to make.
Not necessarily more trustworthy. I just feel like if you're getting I kind of compare and contrast, you know what I mean? So if something happens, I'm just going to kind of read a lot of sources and just kind of curate, okay, what's the general consensus? So that's kind of how I view news. I'm not sure if anybody else does it like that, but, I don't really take anything I hear as fact until I've taken it upon myself to go research it. So, I guess that answer would just depend on specific topics and what I'm doing,
Okay. So again, hypergamy, divestment has really no definition and really no goal. It depends upon the person, but we But we do see a lot of divester channels promoting misandry, black male misandry, which to you is okay as long as that is going to help women make better decisions in the long run.
Well, I feel like hypergamy has a clear-cut definition. You know, it's marrying somebody at or above your current class. As far as divestment, I mean, if we were just going to get to the original meaning of the word, it's turning away from anything that's not serving you or profitable. So, I mean, both words have definitions, but I would say more of just trying to find a definition for divestment. It personally depends on whoever you're watching, what it means for them. You know, for me, divestment means whatever doesn't serve you. For somebody else, divestment might mean I hate all black men, get out of the hood, you know?
Right.
I feel like there's definitely a spectrum going on within our community. And, you know, to nail down one specific definition, I would just say divestment's a spectrum. And you're going to have extremists that are very rude and that, you know, they are misogynistic, misogynistic, and all kinds of terrible things. And then you're going to have people in the middle and you're going to have people that are kind of lenient. I just feel like it's up to individual people to kind of share their experiences. And, you know, I like having dialogue with people, even though, you know, we may not agree or see eye to eye. You know, I feel like we're Black women and we need to have dialogue with each other, and we can sit down and we can say, oh, well, I don't agree with you. Oh, well, she's crazy. Or, oh, what did the person in the chat say? I have psychological issues. No, I'm just conservative, which I guess you guys could say is a psychological issue, depending on where y'all lean. But, you know, I just have very firm beliefs, and I'm here to share my experience. And, you know, if you guys don't agree, it's just cool. You know, I'm here to support. I'm here to talk. I'm vibing with y'all, and it's all good. It's all love. Was it my choice to be a single mom? Yes, it was. If you want to know the full story, you can check out my channel, Southern Belle Spear. But definitely. And, you know, my son's father financially supports us, so I do not have to work.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, I don't know if they consider this on divestors, but like I have close friends of mine who have married, you know, who choose to marry interracially or different things like that. So I don't have issues with interracial relationship. I just, for me, where I don't like on both ends, I don't like seeing attacks against Black men or Black women because I find it damaging. And I think any movements that covertly, you know what I mean, or overtly, whatever, promote that, to me are not good. That's just to me. That's just how I see it. But like I said, if a person decides to marry whoever they want, it's like, okay, that's fine. Just don't. If you're divested, then don't go and now turn around and bash the community that you're divested from, because that's primarily what I've seen online. Also, you know, what I do find curious is if a person divests from my community, why? Like, for example, like, again, you're saying I'm a woman, not say you're a Black woman, I'm divesting from the issues that are within Blackistan. Can you still even identify as a Black person if you have now divested completely from that? Can you identify, you know what I mean, as a Black woman, or, you know, somebody who comes from that community if you're now away from it?
See, that's a very interesting question, especially to ask somebody like me, because my Black card has been taken so many times. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been told I'm not Black for this, that, or the third. Mm-hmm.
Maybe because I know no, I've heard this also within the Divester movement, that there's the preferences, there's the biracial, if you're light, if, you know, it can get, within the Divester movement, what I've seen, there is divisions. So granted, and because it seems like you're a little lighter, I could see somebody being like, oh, well, you're just a preference, or you've been in from colorism. That does exist. But for all intents and purposes, the way I see it, it's like, okay, you're a Black woman, you know, right. Other people will look at you and be like, that's a Black woman. Yeah, maybe she's
right, yeah.
So I'm saying, just assuming you're a Black woman, right? I guess what are your thoughts? Like, if you know, if a Black woman is to divest from Blackistan, could she still identify as a Black woman? Or she's like, no, I'm not that anymore. I'm now this community. You know what I mean?
I think definitely. I mean, we're Black. We're going to be Black. You know, from the day we were born to the day we die, we're going to be Black. So, I mean, I don't think you can just, you know, assimilate in the white culture and be white. I think you retain your Blackness, if that's kind of what you're asking, you know.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, I just saw, this is probably an extreme, but I saw a video earlier today of a dark skinned Black woman, and she's like, "Oh, I identify as a white woman," and then she talks about why.
Oh, Jesus.
She's like, well, because I don't have ears like Black people. All Black people have
Was that Dr. Phil?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm like,
oh my God. Yeah, it came out that was fake, and she was saying all that for clout.
Okay, because I was like, I didn't even know how I saw it, but I was like,
it's not funny, but it is. Yeah, that was terrible. I'm just, I'm not for the Black men bashing. So I guess also in that respect, I'm kind of, if we're looking at divestment as a spectrum, because I have met Black men that are our allies. They love Black women. They don't, they're not for people bashing us. And, I'm not part of the all Black men are bad troop at all. I feel like, again, people should be defined by their character on an individual basis. Like, you can meet somebody and they be a piece of crap, but it's not automatically because they're Black, white, or whatever, People just suck in general, is my opinion. I'm sorry, can I say suck?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, I just feel like us as the human race, there are terrible people, and I'm totally against saying, oh, all these people, all Black men, I'm not on that side of the spectrum at all. I think we do have a lot of Black male allies that, they're tired of seeing us being bashed online. They're tired of all the extreme Black woman bashing channels, and they want us to be uplifted and celebrated. So yeah, I'm just not on the all Black men are bad troop at all.
And do you feel it's necessary to check women who are on the all Black men are bad troop? Do you think that would be helpful?
I do not, because kind of like I was saying earlier, I feel like people who are on the extreme that are in this space, I feel like they can be helpful to reach some people, and especially, I'm all about, the Black woman experience. Like, my Black woman experience is not going to be yours. And if she's in the state of her Black woman experience is, whatever she says, I feel like she's entitled to her experience. And I don't necessarily feel like checking her if she feels that to be true,
Right.
And also, I don't get paid to check people. I'm like, that sounds like a lot of work, That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, no, and I hear you. And I guess I'll say, because I'm not one, like, I'm not going to go, and I think there's a way that you can be clear about something and not feeding into propaganda.
Right.
But also, also be respectful and stand for who you are. So I'm not saying it's like, you got to go, because like, got to go and be everyone's mom. But also for me, like, as somebody who's like, no, I'm going to try to be about the truth and be about things that are helpful. It's like, I'm not gonna have anybody come on my platform and do certain things, just spewing a whole bunch of different lies, or just spewing a whole bunch of different hate. And I'm not like, hey, or somebody go in the comment section and come against me. Like, for me, I'm like, I feel like it's my responsibility to promote certain things. And then if I see something that's like, if it's like a popular idea, and I'm like, this is hurting women, this is hurting men, for me, it's like, okay, it's my responsibility at the very least to offer a different perspective that I think is healthy, and then, go from there. So right, I don't know, you gotta be everybody's mom. There's no way you can do that. But so if you have let me see. If you have a few moments, I did have a few people who wants to call in. Okay. I will drop the call lines, you guys. I'm gonna take this first call, but I am going to need some more super chats to take any more in. So I'm going to take this first caller, and we'll see how it goes. And if I get enough support, then maybe we can take a few more. And if not, then this has been a good conversation, and we can wrap it up.
Okay.
So I will bring this on. Hi there.
Hey, wonderful. How are you? Good afternoon. Good evening.
I have a little bit of an echo. Well, I'll see if I can hear you, but Okay, we'll see if we can make you out, because you're sounding a little bit echoey there.
Okay, is that better now?
A little bit.
A little. Can you make it out? Can you make out what he's saying? I think there's a bit of an echo or a bit of a reverb.
Yeah, I hear it too, definitely.
Okay, my apologies. I think good afternoon. I've never listened to someone who is a divester before, just to be 100% sure. And the views are quite interesting, I must say. And I believe the definition that I'm giving here of divesting, it's still to me a bit it's still a bit murky. I still don't understand fully. Because what I've been getting online about divesting is basically where males or females kind of move away from their, let's say, basically date interracial, right? I do know people who date interracial, but I mean, creating a movement around it, I mean, that is where my challenge comes in. You are free to love who you want to love. No one should judge you for loving who you want
Mhm.
to love. But I mean, creating a movement around it, it will appear that what you're doing now, you're encouraging other people to say, follow my lead, or else you are basically in the wrong, you are dating wrong. That is my understanding of what that investment means based on what I'm seeing online. So I just would like to get some clarity on that.
Sure. I definitely, I guess I'll say again, I don't speak for the whole community. You know, we don't have a chairperson, we don't have a CEO. So I just kind of like to refer back to the meaning of the word, to, you know, divest from anything that doesn't serve you or add value to you. That's the way I see the divestment community from my end. You know, I don't, like, again, like I've said several times, I don't want to speak for every single woman on YouTube that calls herself divested. This is just my specific experience. And that's my interpretation of the word. You know, you divest, and it's not necessarily about saying I hate Black people. It's about saying divest from anyone who's not good for you, regardless of whether they're Black, white, whatever. You know,
Yes,
now again, it's a spectrum, and some people are on the far left and they're like, I hate all Black people, but that's not where I am. And that's kind of, you know, the version of it that I'm trying to represent tonight. I can't speak for other women.
okay, so let me dive in a bit. Okay, fine. So you are from a black, predominantly black community, right?
Yes, my family's Black and I grew up
Okay,
in a
great.
diverse community. Yes.
Okay, great. And you mentioned a bit earlier that the men in your community predominantly they go out and work and it's more traditional relationships.
It's
So
kind of
what?
split, but in general, it's assumed that the man will provide and the woman working will be optional. Like, they can work, but they're, you know, nobody's looking at them to pay 50-50 or anything, because we feel that if a woman chooses to stay at home with her own children, that's the best option for the entire family. So that's just a cultural thing from my location, you know, and what I'm speaking on.
Okay, wonderful. But the way it is packaged now, and this is why in the chat you may see a lot of people trying to get some form of grasp on exactly how to view what you're saying. Because if you're saying that predominantly black ladies are having a hard time, okay, and you have thought that based on your experience, you will be able to give some clarity, give some guidance. What most people are seeing is instead of packaging it in a way to say, okay, whoever you love, go for whoever you love. Whether it's black, white, purple, blue, regardless. Just go for whoever you love. If the person be another race, that's fine. But when you package it, give it a term, and for example, let's say, you know, or you're dating, okay, what a lot of people read into is the expectation is that some of the challenges that we have in the black community are not present in the white, Asian, Hispanic community. That is how a lot of people that is how a lot of people understand it. So that is where pushback will be coming from. Because that is basically just another way of saying black man ain't me, you know, and the white man is a better choice than the black man for the most part. So this is where the difficulty comes in a lot of the times. It is basically, I believe, the way it is packaged.
Right.
Definitely. I agree with what you're saying. Definitely. I definitely hear you. And I feel like a lot of people share what you said. You know, it is, you know, and like I said, this movement is, it's so broad right now. Nobody owns it. You ask each person, they're going to give you probably a different definition of what it is. But I definitely hear and acknowledge your feelings, and I share in them that to turn it into something where all Black men are bad or something like that, I'm not a part of that. And I feel like it's best to evaluate individuals on an individual basis based on their character and getting to know them and such. So I definitely
Yeah.
hear you, and I agree. It's not productive to our community to constantly go at each other. At the same time, I do understand why some women in this field take that approach. You know, different things are going to reach different people, and you know, everybody isn't for everyone. But my personal end goal, and I feel like the end goal of this particular movement is to help Black women and to
Right.
improve our community. That's our, no matter who you talk to in the divestment field, we want to help our sisters. And that's where some of us, we might go extreme and we might say very horrible things about Black men, or whatever, and that's their thing. That's how they're processing what they're trying to get across to people. And, I feel like they're entitled to present their content in that way, and that's why I'm not going to say I think they're wrong.
Right.
But at the same,
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Well, and I appreciate you as a Mr.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I do have another call. I want to be mindful of the time, but thank you for
Sure.
calling in.
Thank you so much.
Now, so are you saying that winning, because you mentioned you're in a situation for Black women, winning is being in any situation where they're taken care of, even if they're not married, and even if they don't have the ring, even if they don't have the, I guess, whether it's the legal contract, they don't have marriage. You think as long as they're in a situation and they're being taken care of, them and their kid is being taken care of, and they're unmarried, they're still winning as long as they have that paycheck from whatever man they're with?
I feel like that's another kind of thing that's very individual. And of course, when you're getting into children and finances, it depends on your state, But in general, I feel like the best option for, Black women is to definitely be conscious of a guy's finances. I'm not going to try to kind of pinpoint and say, everybody has to do one thing. And that's why I kind of, it may seem like I'm fence sitting, but I just kind of feel like so many things depend on people's individual goals and what are you trying to accomplish, And if you're somebody who has been trying something a certain way and you want to see a different way of doing things as a Black woman, maybe you find me and you want to listen to me and say, maybe I'll do what she's doing and see if that works out. I just feel like, representation and just being online, whether people agree with me or not, because a lot of people don't agree with me, and that's fine. I'm just sharing my experience. I just feel like every representation of the Black woman experience is so important and necessary.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, no, you hit on some, because that's what I'm saying. You're okay being associated with a movement that is known for being misandrist. You're okay with that, because even if your channel particular is not that, you say we have plenty of probably spoilers and or divesters, or both in the channel, who are very much promoting propaganda that is just not good. So you're okay being associated with a movement that it may have some negativity, but you're like, hey, as long as I personally am not saying stuff, then it's okay if I'm assumed to be that.
I think so, because I think within any movement, not even just divestment, that's always going to be a challenge. Like, for example, I lean on the right, so people tend to assume things because of that. And the truth is that so much in life is gray, and it's just very hard, I think, to pinpoint and point fingers at one particular thing in this type of situation.
What do you think of Kevin Samuels' approach?
I don't know enough about him to give an opinion, really. I've seen couple second clips, but
So of the couple second clips, there's not any no initial, like, because he's kind of hard to have a neutral stance on. It's usually like, oh, I love him, or it's like, oh, I hate him. It's very rare that you can have a neutral stance. So of the few seconds that you've seen of him, because he's all about Black women getting what they want. That's pretty much his channel. So any initial thoughts? Any initial like, oh, well, he's onto something, or oh, I hate him, or oh, he has a nice suit, or handsome eyes.
Hey, he does have a clean suit. I ain't gonna lie. I will say, from what I've seen from him, I hate to make split judgments about people, which is, why I'm trying to not comment. But I thought, maybe a lot of what he was saying, it had some truth to it. But it's kind of in your delivery. You know what I mean? It's in the delivery. You're saying something that's accurate, but you could be nicer. And that's just my split second judgment from, seconds of footage I've seen of him online.
Okay. I'm gonna bring Hakeem up here, because I saw I know you've been a supporter, so I'll bring him back for a quick discussion. Hey, how's it going, Hakeem?
Hey, Sade, how are you doing?
I'm good. So what are your thoughts here?
I've been chomping at the bits just to. I will start out by saying I definitely will honor your platform. I will definitely be respectful. We can have a definite question and conversation here. But yeah, so I guess I'll ask, your caller a few questions if she's willing to answer them.
Sure.
If that's okay with you.
Sure, it's okay with me.
Okay. So first, thank you for coming as well. I guess the first question I have for you is I just want you to define what's winning in the divestment community in your opinion.
Sure. I feel like that question it's something that's individualized. If you were to ask me personally, I feel like it's being able to live the life you want. And if you choose to have a relationship, it's a healthy relationship, regardless of whether that man is Black or anything.
Okay. And so do you feel that that's, if you were to take the majority of divesters, I'm not saying all, the majority, do you feel that that's their approach? Or do you feel, yeah, because I think Sade's asked you that a couple of times, but you haven't answered. So I'm just looking for the answer to that question specifically.
Sure. I don't feel like I can speak on other people because kind of like I've been saying all throughout this, I feel like at this point, it's a spectrum, nobody owns it. And, there's not a general definition other than just the root definition of the word divestment, just getting away from whatever doesn't serve you and what isn't profitable.
Okay. But either way, when you divest, your outcomes should be better than what you get within the community, correct?
I would hope so.
Okay. So what are the common outcomes you would say Black women get that stay involved with Black men?
I can speak from what people have told me. I've just seen a lot of pain. And if the situation, whether it's a boyfriend or a husband does not work out, it's very hard for them to get support, whether that be physical support or financial support. And that's what I've been hearing. And that's the best way I can answer that question.
Yeah, that's when we saw mostly online, just to be clear.
Yes, ma'am.
The pandemic, that's when you started to see all this information online from women who were having experiences, although that was not your experience.
Correct.
Okay. So in essence, you would probably say the majority of Black women who deal with Black men don't get married and have children out of wedlock, correct?
Correct. If we want to go by stats, I mean, I don't have a personal answer to that, but I would say you're correct.
Okay. So in your situation, I think you alluded to that one, you're not married, and then you also had a child out of wedlock. But interestingly enough, you stated that was intentional. Correct me if I'm wrong with anything I just asked there.
You're not wrong there. Like I said, I do a whole story on my situation on my channel if you guys are interested. I don't think it's something that we could cover in the short amount of time we have here. But yeah, I mean, I was married and I do have a son, and I'm no longer with my son's father, if that kind of answers your question quickly. Okay.
So you're no longer with your son's father. So I guess moving forward, because I took a brief look at your page. I also went and looked at, a video or two. You said divested since 1988 and what so have you. So marriage, I guess, is not where you would see as winning. You're just saying, because I think if I heard you correctly, you said as long as you find a man who's willing to take care of you, that's winning. Am I correct or incorrect?
I think that answer, again, is a very individual thing. To me, I feel like the best option for, women, regardless of their race or anything, if you are going to enter a relationship, I do feel like it should be hypergamous. If you want to get married, honestly, I feel like that's another individual thing. Some people don't want to get married, and, it is what it is. I feel like in most states in the United States, if you do love somebody and you guys are committed to each other, get married, whatever, or get the necessary paperwork in order so that if anything happens to either of you, you guys are each other's legal representatives. It's not just left on the family. So I just feel like so much is individual, and it's up to whoever is consuming my content, or, whoever's, you have to observe things and see, is this going to fit into my life? I'm not for everybody, and I expect people to disagree with me, but, I just speak my truth. And if you were kind of asking me about marriage and everything, I feel like it's individual. It's what are your state laws? How does the couple see each other? I think it's something that you can't really answer in a general way. That's how I've kind of felt about that.
So if you don't mind me asking, why did your, because again, I guess if that you had the outcome and, marriage wasn't a goal, I guess, why did your relationship end, if you're willing to divulge that? Because I think that's an important key, because so often I think online, and I will say you're slightly different than the typical divestors we tend to hear around this sector. We've heard some extreme ones where, to be frankly honest with you, and I think you when Sade read my first super chat, my point of contention with a lot of divestors, and this is the problem I have. I'm all for people doing what they want to do, and I think most of us are. It's
Right.
more of this narrative that all black men are bad and all white men are good.
Right.
That's false. And
whenever you deal with one, a white man. I'm sorry. Who? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You finish your point, and I'll interject.
Oh, okay. So whenever you deal with the outcome that you got, even though you said that it was your intention was never marriage, is the outcome, and that's why I think you understood why I asked you the questions I did, because the outcome you got is the outcome that many black women are disappointed in, that they have children out of wedlock and they're not married to said black men, because, majority of black people, irregardless of what so have you, they marry or date each other compared to, those outside the race.
That's
but
true.
your outcome isn't what most divestors would call a win. So I guess that's, and again, to try to shorten this up, my point of contention with divestors is just, there's a lot of disingenuousness, and I never hear them say where they fell short, regardless of whomever they're dealing with. They're so vocal when it goes wrong with black men, but I would, for once, if you want to be taken seriously, if you're going to be objective, just like in what may have happened in your situation, and that's why I'm asking, share why it didn't work and why you left.
Sure. Okay. To kind of answer your last point, that's actually what we do a lot on my channel. I know you said you're kind of new and you kind of glanced over it, but one of my major points is, every Brad is not good. White is not always right. And I have a whole series where I'm showing you guys, some red flags and some things that have come out of, some situations in divest. It's not, and I really hate that part of a lot of divestment. Just because you go to a Brad does not mean things are going to be perfect. And that's a central part of my message. My son's father and I don't speak a lot on that situation. If you want to go to my channel, I do have a video where I speak briefly on it, but at the end of the day, he's my son's father and I don't speak negatively of him. So that's kind of why I'm just like, our relationship did not work out and he still financially supports us. I'm just not going to speak negatively of him or, say much more about him, because at the end of the day, that's my son's father. He shares my son's DNA. So I just feel like I felt to be in poor taste to say anything I think may be viewed as negative towards him, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
And I get that. I guess that's not what I asked. I asked, you can, the typical legal language you want to call divorces is irreconcilable differences and such. But
sure, we'll go with that. Yeah. We'll go with that.
But here's the thing, though. There still could be maybe expectations weren't met. I'm not asking you to bash, because I think you can argue. Have I said anything of offense or negativity towards you this whole call?
No, not at all. You're fine.
Okay. So I guess I'm just asking for a tangible reason, again, because this will help. I mean, this is not just, this is a dialogue, a tangible reason as to why it didn't work.
I'll just say that there are lots of reasons. And again, I will not, when it comes to my son's father, if I don't have anything nice to say, I'm just going to decline to go into detail about the subject, if you know what I mean. I would just rather say, it didn't work out for reasons why a lot of relationships don't work out. I feel like a lot of, we can put it down the interracial or whatever, but I feel like at the end of the day, people are people. And sometimes situations they just don't work out and you have to separate.
Okay. But would you, okay, and I'm sorry, I'm just gonna just tie this up here. But wouldn't you argue that when most Black women, and again, this is where I'm playing devil's advocate, you said that the reason that you were considering divesting was because of the horror stories Black women had of their men online, correct?
No, I've been divested pretty much my whole life. But what fueled me to come out?
That's not what I heard.
There's kind of been two definitions, because I know she'd mentioned you were divested all your life, but then you mentioned that you also just started to divest after the pandemic. That's when you really started. So I know and you mentioned this before too, that there's somewhat of a moving definition of divesting. So it sounds like you have.
Well, what I meant was I came, I was publicly online as divested. I didn't become divested in 2020 or whenever that was. I've kind of been divested because, at birth, basically, I was divested
into a rural community that you says is colorblind. Everybody loves each other. You were, growing up to not really see color, to not really see race, to kind of just love everybody. And you wanted to share that love with other Black women specifically. That's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the kind of what you were explaining.
Yeah, that's kind of why I exist. I'm sharing my experience. I can only speak, my experience. And, if somebody sees my content and they decide to be more selective about who they're going to choose to partner themselves with, that's kind of all I'm aiming for here. I want better for Black women. And if, I'm not saying that's me, maybe my content doesn't mess with people and that's cool,
Right.
But ma'am, but ma'am, do you realize where I'm going with this? Because we just did an exercise here and I asked you specifically, and you're free not to answer, but you interjected, and because I intently listened to your conversation, and you interjected as to why Black women had the right to divest. It was okay for them. What you won't do, it was okay for them to do. And not only did you give the sense that they had no wrongdoing in their divestment or reason to why that relationship would not work, but it didn't seem like there was any question. It had hints of believe all women, essentially, whether that was that they were overweight or they had issues that they were falling short in, or whether that there were legitimate gripes they had. Never did you ever say, and we've listened to you, you've been on here for almost, an hour, more longer than an hour and a half. Never did you say anything that held women accountable. So I guess your question, and you refuse to answer it, which is fine. But why couldn't those same women take your approach in their failed relationships?
When you say my same approach, what exactly are you referring to?
So it didn't work out for you and your child's father, correct?
Right.
Okay. But were you online bashing your child's father?
No, I don't feel like that's productive to my son or anybody. I feel like, at the end of the day, that's his father.
Okay. So you wouldn't do that, right? So it's okay for others to do that.
Oh, no, not at all. And I know you said you kind of haven't gone through all my content. I definitely hold women accountable. And, I'm not part of the believe all women troop. I just feel like a lot of things come down to an individual basis. And, a lot of things I don't like to really just, say, oh, everything is X, Y, Z.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you said you don't really hold women accountable because you feel like it's not your responsibility. Because we had mentioned this, how, one of the things that really motivated you was seeing the misogyny, right? Especially directed against Black women, the hatred towards Black women. And, to which, we talked about how, okay, well, unfortunately, part of that is because there's a lot of content out there that is promoting hatred towards Black men. So it's like it's somewhat of a bad, loop back cycle. But you said, hey, look, I feel like there should be a space where Black women should be able to express their disdain for Black men because that might reach somebody. And as a result, like I said, if we say that's okay for Black women, that means it's going to happen for Black men. It has to be okay for them too. They also have to be okay if they spew hatred towards Black women. But when we have a discussion, I thought you said, you know what, it's not my part to hold them accountable. I understand where they're coming from. I won't go against it. I'm just going to do me. So
that's exactly what I heard too.
Yeah. So, and let's.
Right. I mean, it's situational. Like, if you're talking about, what we were talking about earlier, then, yeah, I don't want to hold random strangers accountable. But as far as what this gentleman was saying, there are certain situations where I feel like women do play responsibility in a lot of things that, go wrong or whatever, but it's heavily nuanced and situational. I just don't like to blanketly say, yeah, I'm holding them accountable, or yeah, I'm not. Well, what's the situation? What's going on? Because I do hold women accountable for a lot of the, horrible things that we do that contribute to the degradation in our society or any society, Well,
I guess I'll say this, and, if there's not really a clear end goal at place, then are we okay understanding that we can't expect there to be a change on a grand scale? Because it's like anything that you do, right? Whether you say you're running a basketball team or you're trying to do a building or go to college or whatever, it's like, unless there is a clear and concise goal, you can't really have clear and concise steps to get there. And so, are we okay if we say, okay, divesting really doesn't have a clear definition, it's just kind of what it is? Can we understand that means that majority of Black women are not going to benefit from it systematically? Because you can't when there's no end goal. You can't systematically help a group of women without there being a system and a beginning and end goal and a structure to get there. Like, that's just, our entire society is based off of structure and systems, and you know what I mean? So are we okay, if we have that kind of nebulous changing definition, which is okay, granted, are we willing to accept that that's going to impact a very small amount of us? Because without a goal, then what are we really doing? Which I think is kind of what he was trying to get at. Or Hakeem, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think the end goal is to help Black women. And I understand what you're saying. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I can just speak personally for me. I'm just one person. I'm just, a Black girl sitting in the country in North Carolina. I'm one person. Yeah. And I'm not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to present my experience. And if I help somebody, I help somebody. I'm not on YouTube trying to be, Harriet Tubman or Rosa Parks. I'm just sharing my experience as I go along with my life,
Fair point.
Yeah, it's
and yeah, and what I'm getting, the sense of what I'm getting from speaking with you, I don't think you're a true divester.
And I mean, maybe I'm not by, the internet kind of definition, but,
Because the reason I'm saying that is the divestment is pretty, and they've become almost a group that's tied in with eugenics at this point. Just because, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I really would, you sound like a pleasant and well-meaning person, and that's hard for me to say for anyone. And that's why I'm saying I don't consider you a divester, because if you truly are a divester, Black men aren't even in your vocabulary, meaning that they're not even in the equation. But many of the divesters, and this is where you have to kind of be careful who you're going to align yourself to. Many of them have almost near, I don't want to go there and say on this channel, but they have eugenic type tendencies, such as abort Black male babies, don't get with Black men, and then if just things like that, and to say, and even poke fun at when Black men are killed. You'll see many of them say George Floyd got what he had coming to him. I think you see where I'm going with this, right?
Right, and that's why I
guess
classify it more as a spectrum than, we all have to abide by one definition. I feel like with any type of movement, you have a spectrum. You have people far left, people far right, people kind of in the middle. And I guess I kind of see myself maybe in the middle of it. I'm not far radical to where I think all Black men should, just be, I don't want to say anything that could get this video flagged, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. I'm not on that side of the spectrum, but, I'm also not far on the, Black male worshiping, all Black men are good side. I'm just kind of in the middle. And just as somebody who kind of sees my reality and, a lot of people's realities, and if it doesn't serve you, leave it alone. That's just kind of how I feel, whether it's, whatever. But I feel like a lot of the issues are cultural, and I feel like people bring color into things. But as I said, I know people who are in, just these communities that we refer to as Blackistan. And it's not all Black people. It's not all the Black men. But, I guess there's a lot of generalizations going on online. And maybe that's kind of why, over here with divestment, a lot of people see everybody who uses the word divestment as a radical. And, I would just kind of like to say that, it's more of a spectrum. We're not all radical, Black male hating people.
Right. Well, the video that you shared earlier, though, that you had reposted, I know you said you didn't agree with all of it, but that was pretty charged, and that was very, very, very much directed against Black men. And it was pretty damning. That's how I listened to this. I'm just like, whoa, okay, help me understand, because I'm hearing a lot of inconsistencies. That to me sounded like a true divester video. All the time was like, okay, this is the divesting that I've seen. Some of the hypocrisy, some of the different, like just something as simple as like, you will criticize Black men for, being dusty, not building, not having, done anything, not having enough wealth, being conquered, being weak, and at the same time, they're patriarchal. At the same time, they are the most misogynist. They're the most controlling. So it's like, how can you be saying that they can't live up to patriarchy, but at the same time, they're promoting the patriarchy? It's like, so that's just one of the inconsistencies I saw on that 2-minute video that I've seen for me to be the most consistent when I see divester content. And I think that's what Hakeem is referring to. It's like, this is, unfortunately, if you're newer to the divester movement online, which, and like I said, I myself am as far as learning about it, but I think he's saying, it's kind of branded itself over the last few years as this. And if you are coming in and saying, okay, I'm a divester and you're newer, just know that people automatically are going to look at you and say, that's what she is. And if you're not that, then, just to be aware that it's how people are going to see you. And if you're okay with that, then it's like, so, yeah.
And to just add on to it, it's just, at the end of the day, go into any relationship, you have to go into it with a healthy mindset. You have to be pure heart, mind, and spirit. The divestment movement, I think you can agree, the larger one at odds. There's just a lot of bad, not only intent and hate towards Black men, but even what dumbfounds me is that these same women had Black fathers.
Right.
And without that Black father being in the equation, they would not be born. They would not be here. So I guess I don't get that sense from you at all. But that's why I'm not going to, again, I'm just a nobody. I don't have a channel on YouTube. I'm just, here to lend my support to channels like Sister Sade's.
My mother and father were married forever. And me and my father have a great relationship. And maybe that kind of fuels why I don't inherently see Black men in a negative light, because my father is incredible. He's basically like the Black Jack Pearson. Like, I could not have got a better father. So, and of course that also shapes my worldview. And, I don't see every single man who's Black as bad. Like, I feel like they deserve to be judged. Everybody deserves to be judged on an individual basis.
Right. Well, Hakeem, this has been great. I always appreciate, you being on here. And yeah, there's a few other callers.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And you know for coming from me. There's no malintent. It's always about the purpose and the end goal. So
No.
Yes, I welcome it. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
For those of you please get those likes up. I also want to give a special shout out. I've seen a few super chats come through. I want to try to run through it real quickly. Also, you know, I want to appreciate you again, Southern Belle Sphere. I tried to tag you on YouTube, and for some reason it wasn't letting me.
Oh, it's cool. I don't know why not, but I'm happy to be here. You know, like I said in the beginning, you know, Black woman to Black woman, you know, I'm here for you, and I don't have to agree with you, and we can just have an open dialogue about things. You know, I'm just here to answer any questions and offer my experience.
Yeah, you know, I think what might be good to consider, and this could differentiate you. This is something that I'm doing on my channel, right? Where it's like, because I do see there being a lot of negativity that I think is not, that's just based upon lies, you know, women and men. It's like I'm trying to create opportunities to promote some of the good things that I'm seeing Black women and Black men, you know, in particular do, since I see that being a big driving force. So, you know, I have like a Black Men Built That kind of ongoing series that I do where I look at the different contributions that are being made and highlight that, you know. And if you're over here saying you've had a great relationship with your dad, and if it wasn't for him, you know, there's a lot of things in your life that were positive that you wouldn't have experienced. Maybe that's a story worth exploring. Because that's one thing that, unfortunately, Black women, I don't think they hear enough. And maybe for those who have had that, they don't talk about it. They don't share it. So, Chef, is that Rocco? For that super chat, the $50 super. Oh, you know, I have to give the special treatment for that. Y'all, always appreciate the support. I also see. Oh, sorry, my screen is a one more time. Man, I appreciate all of you guys for being here. Also, a shout out to Mr. Z Black in Effect. I see. How does divestment get over the anti-Blackness of the vast majority of non-Black men? B2I marriage is going down across America, and so is the birth rate. How does this work for Black women? I want to be mindful of your time. I do have a few other callers who are here. Do you have maybe about 15 minutes or more minutes, or how are you feeling?
Yes, ma'am. 15 more minutes is fine. Yeah.
Okay. So I do have a few more callers. Just want to try to get these super chats really, really, really fast. I saw a few come through. Trying to get through it all. Also, JoJo. I say, can a woman answer a question and stop jumping around? Did you leave your child's father, or did he leave you? Okay.
I left him, and again, I'm not going to go into details because if I don't have anything nice to say, I'm not.
Yeah, no. You like I said, you know.
I'll just decline to answer.
Okay. You have the right to do that. It says Black woman hypergamy, median income for men in the U.S. is $39K. Okay. I think it looks like Black in Effect called in, so I'm sure he's going to have probably a few questions to ask regarding hypergamy and how that actually works. As you know, as I mentioned before, it's highly unlikely that in America, at least, that people are going to just marry into wealth. But shout out to Hakeem for the 10. Always a pleasure to have you, Hakeem. Always a pleasure to have you. Okay, so let's get to. I think we have Mr. Black in Effect here, and then I have like two other callers. That looks like who called in. Hey there.
What's going on? What's going on, Che? Can you hear me?
Yeah, actually, you know what? In the interest of time, I might just add everybody on here if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
I'll try to manage. So if we could all speak one at a time, Mr. Black in Effect, I'll start with you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So first, I just want to say, good job, Mr. Hakeem. He did a great job, and I'll give divestors and I couple that with swirlers. I know that's another extreme, another kind of sect. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and just say, I don't think they really know what's going on the planet and in America. Like I said in the comments, the marriage rate is going down, the birth rate is going down across America. Half of American men, and me and Shay have had this conversation, half of American men make less than 39 a year, right? 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. So like when I hear Black women speak the particular swirlers and divestors, I'm like, y'all can't possibly know what's going on to make these comments. Even, when it's, oh, well, we'll get their inheritance. And it's like, well, the average inheritance in America is $50,000. That's enough for a nice down payment on a house. But like, I guess the question to you, Miss, is like, how does this work for Black women? How does divesting work for Black women when these non-Black men, and let's call a thing, anti-Black as hell, the higher up you go, the less likely they are to marry a Black woman. Then the men that are kind of on Black women's socioeconomic level don't have the money to do the things y'all are leaving Black men for those men to do. I guess that's my question. How does this work for Black women?
Again, I believe it's very much individualized. I don't, I could answer for myself, but I don't feel like I'm in the position to speak for everyone. People want different things. Hypergamy, I feel like a lot of people make it synonymous with luxury, and it's not. If you, kind of like I said earlier, you could raise a family around here for $65,000 a year. It's there are just so many nuances and situations, and I feel like for to kind of generalize and say, oh, how are we going to make this work for everybody? I have no idea. People are individuals. What is your goal? Do you want a guy that makes $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year? I can't answer for everyone. I can just say that I feel like whatever you want in life is attainable, and I feel like a lot of these stats, and I can only speak from my real world experience, I see people dating and marrying up all the time. But again, I'm in the South, I'm in the rural South. So, my experience is going to differ from you all's, and, unless you guys live in a similar situation. I see things happen all the time, and that's kind of what leads me to go online and give women hope and kind of say that, hey, hypergamy isn't going and getting somebody who's Jeff Bezos. Maybe it's just a middle-class living somewhere in America. It's not about luxury to me. I know a lot of people view hypergamy in that way, but I don't think luxury is needed to be considered hypergamous, So
you said a word I wanted to emphasize, and I'm sorry, and I'll shut up after this. The word hope. And I think that's why my intro was, I don't really think Black women know what's going on in the world. And I think the difference between men and women is the world beats us up every day and strips us of that hope. So it forces us to do things, right? And we don't just, and the hope thing to me is like almost like a drug. It's an opiate. It's like, I need the hope, but that's not the world we're living in. That's why my intro was the economic realities for most Americans. Like 40% of Americans, once again, can't afford a $400 emergency. 60% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency. 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So like, that's just what it is, right? So like, even when we talk about hypergamy and marrying up, like, once again, how does this, I mean, like you're saying about individual Black women, but we're talking about 6.5% of the US population. Like my apologies. I just don't see how this works, and I get the hope thing, but once again, I see that as a drug that Black women are just like, I can't deal with the realities of the world. So I need the hope and the idea that some non-Black man is going to come and whisk me away from, air quotes, Blackistan. I'll pause right there.
Right. And that's fine. I mean, I totally understand your perspective on that. And I'll just say again, I just see things differently. And I don't think it's out of reach for any woman to find happiness. And, even if it's not with a super rich man, I'm just not going to sit here and say that, we should just say Black women shouldn't have hope and Black women shouldn't aspire to be hypergamous if that's the path they choose in life. And like I said, I understand your perspective and where you're coming from. I'm just going to say that from where I sit and what I see, I just see a lot of happiness around me. And, maybe that's just me being in my bubble, but that's the only real thing I can speak on in regards to this, hypergamy and everything. I think it's possible for anybody.
Would you say for women, Black women in particular, who want to be hypergamous, how do you address the weight component? Because 85% of us are like overweight, and across the board, especially when you're going into non-Black territory, men just are not as forgiving. They're just simply not as forgiving when it comes to weight, and most of us in the Black America are overweight. So if you want to get into a higher class or higher income, like there's a reason that you don't see a lot of divesters promoting BBWs or big beautiful women. There is a reason for that. So what do you, Black women who truly desire to divest and maybe marry up or just even marry good, how do you address the weight component?
It's never been an issue for me in particular. I used to be a lot heavier than I am currently. And again, I'm in the South. I feel like my location maybe frames the type of experience I've had, which is why I always say it.
Mm-hmm.
Here you just don't see the type of, it's not like fat women can't get decent men. It's not a barrier here, but I'm in the South. We like things bigger around these parts. So,
Black men especially, I mean, they're the most body positive. So I always argue this, that I think Black men tend to be they're more forgiving when it comes to maybe a woman's weight if she has the right qualities. But I'm just thinking specifically for women who want to divest into specifically other communities or marry up. Other men, white men, this beauty standard that some of us feel oppressed by, they're not as forgiving as African tropical bigger body types. They're just not. Which is, I think, one of the reasons Kevin Samuels get pushed back. To ask you about it, but I know you haven't mentioned. But so if you live in a rural area, you're a small town, that makes sense. I just was curious how you address women, because if you're having women coming from all over different places, it is talking to you, trying to get advice. I mean, that is a real thing. That is a real thing that many of us are going to face, whether we're in a other town, small town, city. It is reality. So now, Coco T, thank you for joining. What do you think? I know you had some questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I've been listening, and I was just really happy to hear from Southern Belle. I definitely agree with her. I agree with the divestment movement.
Okay.
I agree with a lot of the things she said. It does look different for every single Black woman. There are those extremists who want to blame everything on Black men, who want to say all the negative things about Black men, but there are ones who just want to open up their options. They just want to date out, and they haven't experienced anything traumatic by Black men, but they also haven't gotten good results dating Black men either.
Okay.
Another reason that I've seen is that compared to other men, Black men are the least married group. And so the chances of a Black woman getting married if she only dated Black men is only a 30% chance, because 70% of them are unmarried, compared to other
It's
groups
not
of men.
I don't think it's 70. I think it's about closer to 50, 52, 53.
So the 51% of single and childless is for Black men ages 18 to 25. It's not Black men as a whole. There's an age group for that statistic. On the blackdemographics.com, it only says 30% of Black men are married compared to, everyone else. So
Yeah.
one of the,
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Continue.
Well, I was just going to say that's one of the main arguments for divestment, is that if a Black woman wants to get married, the chances of her being married is not as high dating Black men only compared to if she dated everyone else. And that's, yeah.
So I just did the numbers on this actually, maybe like a few weeks ago, and I talked about this earlier about the the rate of interracial marriage is very low, and I pulled this from the U.S. Bureau of Census Bureau. So white men marry black women at a little less than 1%. Now, this is nationwide. I'm not saying in certain areas, certain cities, urban areas, you'll see a higher percentage of it. But nationwide, white men marry black women a little less than 1%. Asian men, it's about 0.22%. And Hispanic men, it's also a little less than 1%. Meanwhile, we have black men that either there is a smaller population, there's about 500,000 more black men who are married than black women. So, when I look at those numbers, and we see that black men are marrying more and they are wanting to commit more. There's different studies that talk about men, even in general today, wanting to commit more. I don't know if it's because black men are not wanting to marry or they're not wanting to commit. Because like I said, if that was the case, 500,000 more of them wouldn't be married than black women, although there's less of them. But when I look at those numbers and I see, if you are to try to expand your options, it's such a small percentage. Meanwhile, there's black men who are very much single and available and childless. Is the issue that black men are not wanting to marry or settle down and date and marry, or are there other things at play?
So a few things for that. So again, yeah, that 50% is only for black men ages 18 to 25 that are single and childless. Actually, the census, the 2020 data listed single fathers and who's the biggest or the largest group for young single fathers, I think under the ages of 24. And black men they're still the largest group, even from 2020. That's on the census website for single fatherhood. Yes. And then it's not.
Okay, because I didn't see that. I just did the numbers on it, and they're like single fathers. It's like 11%. So you know what? I would love if you could show me the.
Oh well, I can send you the link, but it's just comparing it to out of all men, not in general, just of the young group of men. Black men were number one. They're still the largest group of men. And also the 500,000 more married black men are because they dated out. There's 500,000 black men who married out. So, and since black men date out twice as much, that's where those numbers come from.
Yeah, I don't.
So,
I hear you, but here's the thing about statisticulation. You can take one thing, and if we don't do the numbers right, or if it's misapplied, then it can. Because I know black men are the biggest confirmed the bachelors or single. And then bachelors end with no kids. So it's like, how are they don't have these kids, but now there's all these single fathers. I think what's happening, what we're forgetting is that black women, single mothers, they're not just procreating with black men. They are procreating with different ethnicities. So I don't know that it's true that black men are the.
Yeah, I can email you some of the data so that you can see exactly. But majority of black women that are single mothers, the fathers are black. I mean, they're procreating with other men, but those other men aren't they're not the majority. So,
I mean,
it's
what
kind
you're
of,
saying is
it's
is
kind of weird
factually
to
accurate, and
say.
my apologies.
But hold on, sorry. It's kind of weird to say that 89% of black women are single mothers and the 11% for black men, single fathers, but majority of the fathers for these black women are black men. So those numbers don't really, how do those numbers add up?
So what it's saying is that there's a small percentage of women who procreate. No, there's a large percentage of women who procreate with a small percentage of men. And again, there are studies who different. I mean, they had one even at Bumble where it was talking about how women were going after the top 20%, 80-20 rule. This is actually kind of a common talking point within the manosphere. But it's this idea that women are really of all ethnicities are going towards specific groups of men, which is why black men have the largest confirmed group of childless single bachelors, because there are men out there who may have, I know a few of them, who may have 4 or 5, 6 baby mothers. We've even seen this in the media, some of these rappers, because it's women they're looking, especially if they look a certain way, they have swag or they have money, women are drawn to that. Meanwhile, maybe the plumber or the guy next door who's maybe shorter or tall, or he's working a job, but he doesn't really hit on those cylinders, you're not giving him the time of day. Black women have a higher rate of STDs. It's easy for black women to get sex. It's not as easy for black men to get, sexual access. And so that's why it's saying of the single, I'm not saying of all black women, obviously it's of those who are single parents, right? And not married, not cohabitating, whatever, they are single, they're not with anyone. 89% of them are women, 11% of them are men. And then again, that's speaking to the fact that Black women are pretty much, they're having more sexual access of different races. Not as much. Obviously, majority of the kids are going to be from Black men, but that's essentially what that study is saying. But yeah, I would love, please send it my way. I would love to read through that, what you're referring to, and check that out. So, but
I actually had I'm sorry, I just had a comment for the young lady. So, you know, I have a channel also, and on my page, I posted a chart that shows the out of wedlock birth rate for a bunch of countries, and it's mainly like, you know, advanced countries, France and Germany and whatnot, and Japan and South Korea and all of those countries, Finland and Denmark and all those type of nations. And what you saw, it's very socioeconomic, even culturally. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, I'm certain that Black women really don't know what's going on in the planet. And so, I mean, I see both the caller, I mean, the person you're interviewing, Miss Southern Belle, and the young lady that was speaking, like they hop, jump, skip around like the anti-Blackness of the system. So, okay, yeah, all right, Black men are the worst thing that ever happened. These non-Black men are great. But are they likely to marry Black women? That's why the one thing I agree with Kevin on is counting marriage. Because what counting marriage does is it makes it that, oh, I've had sex with non-Black men, or I've had relationships with non-Black men. And it's like, yeah, that's cute. But what about the ring, right? So that's the one good thing that Kevin does, is count the ring, so that we can actually have an end goal and not some nebulous, well, at least they like me type of measurement, you know? So once again, like, do Black women really understand what's going on the planet and in America? Just even if it's just America, do they understand that the marriage rate is going down across the board for men of all different backgrounds? Because like hyper individuality means that we just don't want a couple anymore, you know? And I pause right there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can I also make a comment on that too? So I hear a lot of other things just in the manosphere space, that the reason why, you know, Black women aren't dating out as much is because they're just the least desirable, you know, just, you know, it has to do with looks and all these other superficial reasons, when there's actually studies that have been done to prove that completely wrong, and that the real reason why is because of Black women's race loyalty and how so many Black women don't want to date out.
I did not say that. I'm saying racism. So I'm not making a comment about weight or any of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No, I understand. I'm just making a general statement here. But yeah, there is studies to prove that the real reason the marriages are so low is because Black women are, in a way, just indoctrinated to only be with and want Black men and to not date out. And actually other races of men do find Black women attractive and do want to be with Black women, but Black women, they're just under the impression Black women would not want to be with them in return, so they don't even bother to approach or take anything seriously. There is studies done on that, so I don't know, Ches, if you're interested in reading that, I can send that to you as well.
Because you know, so what you're saying basically is that there's these different, you know, non-Black men out there who are knocking on the doors of these Black women who are wanting marriage, who are wanting to share their assets and their last name with these women. Black women are saying, no, I know you're a good guy. I know you have the money, the success. I know you have the accolades, but I'm not wanting to be with you because you're not Black. That's essentially what you're saying. I just want to make sure.
Yes and no. I'm not saying that they're knocking on the doors, because like I said, they're actually not knocking on the doors because they're under the impression Black women wouldn't want them anyway, so they're not even wasting their time. But yes, Black women are just kind of knocking off the entire notion of wanting to date out for different reasons that they've been raised to believe. So I think divestment really just kind of tries to get Black women out of that indoctrination, and just date whoever, just date the best man for the job, and make race the bottom of the or not a reason at all.
I don't think Black women have the luxury. I mean, like, we've had these movements in the past. I don't know how many of us are kind of history buffs, but Black women it wasn't called divestment, but we've had these movements coming out of the late 80s, early 90s from Black women, believe it or not. And we've had, you know, talk shows that kind of are talking black women, open up your options. So this movement is decades old at
And
this point, and it's just never
I
worked, you
definitely
know.
agree
So
with you. I definitely agree with you. There has always been these movements. I actually am a history buff, so there have been these movements, but this is kind of the first time that this movement has been so widespread and has gotten so popular in such a short amount of time, especially amongst really young Black women who actually don't who actually don't fall into the statistic. There's actually a majority of divestors don't have kids and they've never been married, and they're actually very young girls, like coming out of college. So, and they're wanting to date out and interracially date. They're not trying to be with Black men, some of them ever. So,
I agree with you. I
and
think the
also,
young. My apologies. Go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, sorry, just my last point.
Mhm.
Also,
Yeah.
that interracial dates, interracial marriages for both Black men and women have steadily increased every 10 years. So I think the whole like, oh, they're not marrying guys, they're not marrying guys, that stat was taken way before this online current divestment movement was happening. So I'm actually curious to see what the numbers are going to look like really for everybody within the next 10 years after all of this Kevin Samuels and divestment and
Yeah, me
everything has
too.
taken place. I'm very interested to see what the numbers will look like, and I think the numbers will be very interesting.
You know,
I
I
agree
think
with
it's
you. I
interesting
think.
that you say,
My
oh,
apologies, sir.
okay, yeah, really quick. You know, what's interesting is because what you said, that assumes that men haven't had sexual access to Black women. And men have had sexual access to Black women since the beginning of this nation. So I don't know, the idea that these other races of men are scared to approach or intimidated to approach, I don't know. I find that to be untrue just based upon simple history. Because like I said, sexual access has happened throughout the entire time. Obviously, slavery, the ideas of like the tragic mulatto. If you look at Thomas Jefferson, right? I mean, there's just every aspect of society, Black women,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well,
So,
You know, I just wanted to make
yeah, I
a
mean,
short comment. It's just
yes,
I
but
agree
sexual
with you that
access,
the
but not marriage access. Sexual access has been around, but not marriage. Like women have to say yes and accept proposals, and Black women have just been raised that that's not something you do if the man isn't Black.
no,
So,
but you're ignoring the racism part. Like this is my argument, and I agree with you. The marriage rate, I think, here's the problem: we're Black people are gonna run into the wall that is everybody's getting married less, right? So I agree
right,
with you that you know Black women may have more of an option to date out, and so can Black men. But everybody in developed countries are marrying less and having less children. So let's say our marriage rate, both Black men and Black women's marriage rate double, but then in the next 3-4 decades, because everybody's marrying less, it just halves again. Because once again, everywhere from America to Britain to France to Canada, like everybody, Japan, like either people are marrying less and having less children, or they're just marrying less and not having any children. Because we live in a hyper individualized society. Welcome to capitalism, right? We
yeah,
live in a neoliberal society that puts market values on everything. And what I'm saying is, I get it, Black women, but I don't even think Black women even understand what's going on. Like putting a market valuation on everything, including men and marriage, means that you yourself, and this goes to what Shay was saying about going after the top 20%, you yourself block yourself out. So you know, Black women will date white men and then realize white men are average as hell, just like everybody else. And then what?
so I just also that reminds me of the other thing I wanted to address regarding divestment is that not every divested Black woman is looking for like a 20% millionaire man. That's just very unrealistic. Like there's a lot of women that are just looking for a man who's family oriented, who's ambitious, who can protect and can provide while she does her role in return. So I think that's another misconception that, you know, a lot of divestors are looking for millionaire white men, and that's very unrealistic. I mean, it can happen to anybody, but that's definitely not something that was ever listed as a definition for
I mean, the
divestment.
numbers are
So
still off. I mean, top 20% would be around 70 grand a year, maybe 80,000, actually a little bit less than that, right? So like, I mean, okay, even if we bring a millionaire, 8% of Americans are millionaires, and that's not a million in the bank. That's a million, like all their assets added up, right? If you liquidate them in their life, you could give them like 1.1, 1.5, maybe $2 million, right? Like, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. So even when I said top 20%, and you use the millionaire example, and I'm not certain if you just were throwing out a number, I get it. But once again, like 8% of Americans are millionaires, and that's all of their assets, right? Like millennials, like generally speaking, millennials don't have no money, neither do Gen Z and even younger Xers, right? So like, once again, I get where Black women are coming from, but I think they don't really understand what's going on around the planet, especially America. So the hypergamy thing, and I know that's not what you're advocating, and even the swirler and divester thing, it's like an answer, but it's not really an answer. It's about hope, like Southern Belle was speaking about earlier, and I understand the need for hope, but I don't really know how that manifests tangibly for Black women.
I mean, I guess instead of, oh,
No,
sorry.
No, you can go. You can go, and then I
I'll
want to
just, yeah.
No, you can go.
I was just going to respond to him just really quickly. I mean, I definitely see what you're saying. I totally agree. Like the whole world, every culture is kind of on a downward, like downward fall when it comes to mating. But, you know, at the end of the day, Black women are the most single group of women, period, a single group of people. So we really don't lose out on anything dating out regardless, because we're already not getting it in our own communities. And for some women, holding themselves accountable and fixing themselves looks like opening up their options and dating other races of men and visiting other countries and finding love there if they want. I mean, it also looks like doing something different and that they have never done before. Like that's also what it can look like when it comes to improving.
Fair point. So I do want to, because I think there was another gentleman on the call. I don't know if he's spoken yet. KJ Jojo. I know he's been patiently waiting there. I will say again, I would be interested I would love for you to send me those studies. Coco T, please do. I will definitely check it out. I did post a study here that was done from the University of Colorado Boulder. And this is looking at genders, and it says a body that does not compare how white men define Black female beauty in the era of color blindness. And the first quote says, just the term Black woman conjures up thoughts of an overweight, dark-skinned, loud, poorly educated person with gold teeth yelling at somebody in public. I hope that doesn't make me racist, but honestly, that's the first thing I think of. It says middle-class white man in his 30s from Florida. So that's why, like I said, I'd be curious to see your sources. As Black in Effect mentioned, that's not to say there's not, people out there where it may work for them, but we can't necessarily, if we overlook just obvious cultural differences, obvious racial systems, the decline of marriage, all these different things, if we just kind of overlook it and then just hang on to hope.
Shay, can I back you up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm from Florida. I live in Florida currently. I live in South Florida. I've worked both white collar jobs and blue collar jobs. When I say these white guys ain't checking, their level of indifference towards Black women is like borderline. It's so hateful. It's like it's almost like Black women are invisible. I don't even know how to say. Even I get mad. Like, and I'm for Black people being with Black people, but even I get mad. Like, God damn, like, y'all Black women are so in. When the young lady was saying like these non-Black men, they don't think they have a chance. I'm like, yeah, that's what they say when someone comes up to them and asks them a question. But on a day-to-day basis, when they're on happy hour with us, or when we're talking about sports and we kind of delve into sex and relationships, when I say non-Black men, the level of indifference is so hateful, it's disgusting. And I wish Black women could be a fly on the wall to see that. To see y'all have no idea. The racism is still real. It's just that these non-Black men. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Quick. I'm sorry. No, I'm definitely not invalidating your experience. I 1000% believe there's plenty of men. There's even Black men who are disgusted by Black women. That's no secret. But I guess I could say the same for my personal life. I went to all white school. I was the only Black girl in my classes from preschool to 12th grade up until I went to my HBCU. And none of these white girls wanted to be with the Black boys at all. And the Black boys were definitely checking for the white girls. But I can kind of say the same thing, that I wish a lot of Black men were flies on the wall when it came to what white women had to say about them. And these white women they wanted their own men. Like, they weren't desiring Black boys as teenagers, which is supposed to be the time where everyone's really hormonal and growing and, you know, really sexual. And they were not desiring that with Black men. So there's always going to be racist people and people that find you desirable. That's not something divestors are denying. They're just choosing to go towards men that treat them right and meet their standards. And that's really what it's about. Like Southern Belle said, you have those radical people that want to hate on Black men and blame them for everything. That's with any type of movement. You have extreme KKK members and you have like not extreme white nationalists or whatever. That's with any kind of movement. So I think that but then I still know some white women that love Black men too. So there's still people out there that don't have those ill will feelings, but there are people that do.
I agree.
So it's like everything that you can say is very valid, but I can say the same for the opposite as well. Like there is
No, I agree. I agree that
I mean?
there's white women not checking in. I actually think it's.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in when people say once you go Black you don't go back. That's the biggest lie in the world. You know how many white women,
It is a
Asian,
lie,
Latinas,
yeah.
who have had sex with Black men and they're not married to their
Yes.
basic ass boring husbands now that are not Black. Same thing with. And one of the most open kept secrets, and I'll end with this. You know, when we came, a lot of the talk Black and sleep white thing comes from the Black Panthers, right? But one of the most open kept secrets is that these sisters was out here sleeping with the white boys too. But the white boys just didn't marry them. See, and this is going to what you're speaking about,
Yeah,
Shay, about the sexual access. Is like these white guys, these liberal white guys were sleeping with Black women that were part of the civil rights movement and the Black power movement. They just didn't marry them. You know, there were very few Diana Rosses and you know, I'm Nina Simone's and stuff like that, right? So very few of them. Most white dudes, they had sex with Black women, and then you know that was it. They went back to whatever community they came from. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, so that's all they were trying to do is have.
Yeah.
And to your earlier point, I hear what you're saying about there being. You could say the same thing for men about you know, men that were saying about Black women. Of course, there's plenty of Black men out there. There's plenty of white women out there, you know, who they may participate into this. But I do think the difference is that men are the one that control access to wealth. They're the one that controls access to marriage. Unless we as women are, by and large, willing to promote and start pushing women to, you know, get down on their knees and propose, it's up to the men to propose. And most men, they don't care about marriage like that. Dudes aren't like, they're not crying if they've, you know, laid down with a Black man laid down with a Becky and he can't marry her. Most dudes are just like, cool, I got what I want. I don't need to commit. So a man maybe being rejected, just sleeping with a woman, but not wanting marriage, for him, that's like a win. Whereas for us women, many of us, we do desire marriage because that means security. I mean, and there's different reasons for that, but so I think that is a key difference, which is why I don't think it's exactly the same. Also, I don't really see a Black male divestment movement saying all of you people need to divest. The closest would be SYSBM, but SYSBM.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was SYSBM, but
there's a small percentage of them who do not like Black women. Yes, that exists, but there's also many of them who are like, go to Africa, go to the Caribbean, go to Dominican Republic to find Black women who are just maybe not westernized. So it's a little different.
Yeah, I do agree. I agree. Like Black men, or you know, men in general, like you're saying, are the ones to offer access to marriage, but women are also the ones that offer the consent and offer, you know, the access to having the children and all these other things. I mean, the woman's role is, you know, it's a 2-for-2 thing. It's just I think the main thing is, what do you value most, or what do you consider more important? Do you consider the proposal more important, or do you consider the acceptance more important? Because you can have proposals and get rejected, and you can just have nothing and have no marriage. I mean, everyone has to be on one accord, or else nothing really gets done.
I hear you. And this is just me. Maybe it's different where you're from, but I have never heard, because I think if this was an issue, we would have heard it, but I've never heard many Black women say, you know what, Brad proposed to me and I said no. Or, you know, Jose proposed to me and I said no. I haven't seen that once, or I haven't seen it online. I haven't seen all the situations of Black women being like, I was so loyal that I had good non-Black men propose to me or come up to me and I said no. But you know what, you younger woman, you need to do different. You need to expand your options. I've never seen that. So that's why I'm like, is it really that we're rejecting other races and saying, no, we're going to be so loyal to men. Meanwhile, there's all these Black men who are unmarried, yet Black men are committing more. So I'm like, is it really, really that? Or is it that?
Yeah, well, earlier with that study, it wasn't focusing on marriage proposals. It was focusing on just dating and having the options available to even explore something that can lead to that in the first place. So that was the study that I was referring to. But I think you can kind of say that about lots of women. I think there's lots of women that accept proposals, but there's women, it's probably not the majority, but there are women out there that reject proposals, really no matter the race of the man or the woman. So I don't know. That's just kind of how.
I think we can't judge this for the next 20 years.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll end with that, Shay. I'm done after this. I think. Okay, so we're in 2022, 2021, 2022. I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's give it. Most of us we're millennials and Gen Z, younger Xers. We'll be alive in 20 years. Let's see in 20 years what that marriage look like. Marriage rate, look like for Black women with non-Black men. Because I promise you, it ain't. Right now, it's 4%. Everybody says 12. No, it's 4. It's 12% if you control only for married Black women. It's 4% for all Black women of marriageable age. So let's see if that quadruples in the next 20 years. I highly doubt it, especially right now with kind of what's going on in the country with the different, white men in their movements. But I highly, and marriage is going down. But let's see in the next 20 years. I think we can't judge it yet because Divestment and Swirler online, at least is young. So the young lady is right about that. But let's give it about 2 decades and let's see where we are then.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing it too. And another thing, just really quick, like divestors also acknowledge that, divestors are the minority. So expecting like all of a sudden a huge jump, 60% of Black women married to white men is incredibly unrealistic. They already acknowledge that divestors are the minority, and that's fine. So it's going to probably. I'd be interested to see if there's an increase, but if there is, it's not going to be anything extravagant because majority of Black people at the end of the day still want each other no matter what content comes out. So
right. Well, I want to let KJ, Jojo, thank you, Black in Effect, thank you, Coco T. Thank you for
all right, have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Yes. Thank you. And Southern Belle, like I said, you've been hanging with me. I didn't know it was going to go so long, but you've been great to talk to. And like I said, I appreciate you guys for trying to keep it respectful, being open, asking questions. And thank you, KJ Jojo, for being so patient.
Them some long-winded people.
Okay.
Yeah. But listen, so let me commend you on the direction that you're taking, because we need more sisters like you that stand up for Black love, because at the end of the day, we already know what this system of white supremacy is out to do, and that's to tarnish and demolish and pull the Black male image out of the household continuously, and to kill the masculine Black man image and effeminate him. So by the Willie Lynch syndrome, right, the Willie Lynch letter written on the King James River, it says that the ultimate goal of what the slave master was trying to do was pull the woman and control the woman, because she has access to generational wealth. Once you got the woman, you got the whole nation, right? So that's what we're dealing with. We're looking at the repercussions of slavery, of the Willie Lynch syndrome. We got colorism. We got people talking and saying that they're divesting from their own community, talking about they're not Black anymore, basically, right? Then you got the men that hate their own kind, hate the Black women, So this thing is playing itself out right before our eyes. And when we listen to the people that talk like this in a real world, we know they don't make no sense. And we're trying to reach them, but hopefully there's a spark or something that can ignite in their spirit to get them back in tune with their ancestors. Because the sister said earlier, well, she's not no Rosa Parks, or she's not no Harriet Tubman. My thing is, that's like total disrespect to even think that you can even put yourself in their level, because they didn't even lay with the white folks. Like, they fought against racism. They fought against slavery and holding their people down. So now our people are out to better and further the strength of the reigning power that is white supremacy. So it's like, okay, you got an enemy within yourself and you got an enemy within your culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much going on right now. We fighting amongst each other about some stuff. Look here, man. I had to vet my woman before I committed to her because she was dating white dudes and all that old stuff. And I can't stand that old crap, right? But I had to make sure she wasn't one of these divesting women, right? Because, you know, them women, they hate black men. When you wear a title like that, you recognize as a hater. I don't need a hater around me, right? So after I vetted her, I recognized that she just like men. You know, she ain't conscious like that. There are some women and there are some men that are conscious, not conscious to the extent that they understand the dynamic of racial lines and culture, right? But then you have those that put themselves in a position to make a choice to not date their own. Now, those are the ones that are dangerous. They're very dangerous and they're oppositional to the growth of black empowerment. We're already trying to get off from under this rock that we're under as a people, and we got our own kind trying to hold the rock down. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's a lot of propaganda going out there. Black love is on the rise. Like, we the ones that got to promote our own media. White media doesn't want to promote black love. White media ain't gonna talk about black love. And the people that have sold out to the idea that white non-black love is better than black love is just as lost as the people that was before them that thought the same thing, like the brother was just saying. So I'm not trying to take over your panel, my sister. I'm just dropping a jewel. Hopefully the sister able to hear it, but she say she's from the South. I'm from the South too. I'm from that ATL. You know what I'm saying? Where the real players dwell. You know, I'm talking about the women are voluptuous and beautiful. You feel what I'm saying? And we run that city. Like, you know, at the end of the day, we're working on it and we're trying to, you know what I'm saying, get things together. You know, but we got people like this that work against us. You know, so when we got people like this that work against us, how farther can we get? We're trying to pull them back in, but they trying to come over here to pull us out or pull our sisters out. So it's like, dang, why you trying to be an enemy over here? Go ahead. If you gonna do that, just go ahead and do it. Leave us alone. We over here saying black B1 all day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like black babies. I don't want to see no in 50 years light bright baby that don't. What happened if we all divest, right? We kill off the black race. You know what I'm saying? We'll be a whole bunch of half-breeds.
You're funny.
I'm just saying, man. So
no,
hey, look, I love my black woman. I'm just saying, you know, I gotta always shout her out. You know, Sade, I love what you're doing. I love what Courtney Michelle was doing, and there's some more other sisters that are follow, you know what I'm saying, that are in alignment. See, they need to hear the woman's voice today. See, because women been having a voice for a minute, but it's always been against a black man for years, like The View, Oprah, all that old stuff. See, now women are getting the voice to really speak, the real sisters, right? So we need to continue to put. That's why brothers support you. We ain't simping for you. You're a married woman. What are they talking about? You know, we support black love around here. So look, man, I was being patient in the cut because I already knew I had a jewel to drop. You know, that other sister, she was just going so far. I don't know what she was at, man. I'm like, Lord, did she recognize that we're on the brink of a civil war, and that at the end of the day, if they were to turn their guns on us, they'll shoot her too, even though she in the bed with them? Anyway, you know, I'm gonna stay woke. I'm gonna stay on my toes. Y'all stay safe out there. Much love. Keep doing what you're doing. Peace.
Thank you for calling in.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very fun chat and discussion. You know, we've talked about a lot of different things. I think the majority opinion that I've heard, those who might be opposed to the idea of divesting or whatever, most people are like, hey, marry whoever you want to marry, go wherever you want to go. Just don't do it while promoting hatred, blackmail, misandry, or anything that's going to essentially be detrimental to the black community. And just folks in general, you know, and promoting the self-hatred, promoting all that. I think that's the main gripe. And like I said, many of us have seen that, and we've seen some big divester channels share those messages that really are bad and really are detrimental. But I'm a person, I really am a person, like I said, that I love people in general, and I really do try to look at the character of the person and see who they are. So like I said, I got friends who was married interracially. I also have a lot of friends that are into Black love. So to me, it's like whatever. It's just what are you about? Why are you doing what you were doing? So, but like I said, I do appreciate you calling in and having these discussions and talking about some of this different stuff. Did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to leave with everybody before we wrap it up?
Sure. Again, thank you so much for having me. I had a really good time. Like I said, I'm all for just having calm conversations and sharing viewpoints. You know, we don't have to all agree, but just one Black woman to another, I'm here for you. And, you know, I'm here to talk and share my opinion. And I would just like to say in general, I just want to leave your audience with, go with where you're loved. You know, so much is about a person's character. And if you find somebody with good character, whether it's a Black guy, a white guy, whoever, you know, go with somebody who has good character and go with somebody who treats you well. And again, I feel like a lot of divestment, you know, we have radicals within our movement, and you know, if that's their voice, that's their voice. I feel like they have a place, and our end goal in general, I feel like, is to help Black women. And that's just it. That's what I want to do. And that's what I see so many of my sisters online in the Black woman experience. We just want to help other Black women.
You want to help other Black, you know, I want to say this. I wish it was possible that we could help each other.
Yes.
I hate to where that it seems as if this helping us like, oh, I only got to help the Black man, or I only got to help the Black woman. This is why I try to have topics where I'm talking to women and men, because I see it as, now the strength of the community is working together. So I can't be like, oh, I'm over here empowering Black women, but you know, damn you Black men. I'm like, because that's, no successful community works like that. If you see, like there's a lot of Chinese family that live by me, and I notice it's like a lot of times I go to a restaurant, I'm seeing man, wife, kids, grandparents. I'm going to the park, I see man, wife, kids, grandparents. Chinese and Indian families, like I noticed that a lot, where it's like wherever you go, vacation. I remember I went to vacation and I saw a lot of families, and it's like the strength of any community. It's their families. It's not the bickering man over here, woman over there. A house divided against itself can't stand. So I hate sometimes where I feel like this message sometimes can seem like it is about, oh, we got to strengthen the women, and that's at the expense of man. And at least I can say in my channel, it's like, no, I'm not trying to do that, because you can't. You kind of need each other. Like there's no way around it. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for a man and a woman coming together. Period. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So. But then, that's how I see it.
Right, definitely. And I always talk on my channel, you know, we need each other, just like you just said. At the end of the day, we need each other.
Right. Well, yeah. I do. I appreciate you calling on and having this discussion with me, and
yes,
keeping it respectful. I think I'll try to because I tried to tag you, but like I said, I wasn't able to. But I'll go back and make sure I got information in the description. So
okay, great, thank you.
They can, yeah, this has been fun and entertaining. So again, thank you so much, and you have a good night.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure.
Bye.
All right. So I guess this went a little longer than I anticipated, but that's okay. I appreciate all of you guys who have been here, hanging out with me this whole time, calling in, supporters. You know, I'll leave it with this. As I mentioned before, I know I can't speak for her. Her channel is what it is, and she was clear about what she wanted to talk about. I will say, for me, I'm really not about promoting anything that I think is just going to be unhelpful, based upon lies, ungodly propaganda. So if I see something, if I see any movement or I think that's really going to be, that's doing just that, then it's like, I have to question it. You know what I mean? We got to go against it. And unfortunately, I enjoyed having a discussion with her. We may not agree on everything, and that's okay. But at least she was willing to come on here and be respectful and not talk about anybody. Most of you guys who are listening, I'm sure you're like, hey, date or marry whoever you want. Just be respectful. And I can appreciate we had a conversation and she did that. Unfortunately, at least from what I've seen, and she didn't deny it, there is still a lot of content out there that is not as that just is bad intentions. So, it is what it is. I guess all I could do is my part and try to address these topics as much as I can and try to get down to the nitty-gritty of what's going on, what's helpful, what's not helpful, what's true, what's false. Obviously, you get to decide. But again, I was happy to have this conversation, and I was glad that her and a few callers came in and shared their perspective. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. We're able to take something away from it. Some of y'all now maybe more SYSBM than ever. Some of you may not have been changed or affected. Some of you guys may have things to think about. It is what it is. But I know for me, I'm more like at the end of the day, I stand before God. So I want to make sure that what I say and do and represent is honoring to him, which also means honoring people, being honoring to both men and women, because God created men and women. So that is my goal. And that's what I'm going to continue to try to do. Anyways, but this was fun. This was fun. Also, nobody can say that I exist in an echo chamber. This is another reason. I know I had a few followers who are just like, why are you going to talk to a Divester? And I'm just like, because I don't exist in an echo chamber. I don't pretend to know everything. And if I really believe something, then I have to be willing to take account for that. And sometimes that means, okay, engaging with somebody that you may not think you're in agreement with, or you may have different viewpoints. So I'm not afraid to talk to somebody just because they may be from a side that I don't agree with, or they may identify as something that I don't understand or like. It's like, no, because I don't exist in the echo chamber. If the truth is the truth. So I don't have to be afraid to talk to somebody if I'm living the truth. So that's like I said, why I did it. And I think I had fun. It was cool. So anyways, this has been good. And I think I'm hungry. I need to go eat. So again, I thank all of you guys for being here, and definitely stay tuned. We have some more exciting content coming up within the next few weeks, as always. And we'll talk later. Bye.